Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from. And you can support the channel by clicking thanks or joining. The first time Ethan Ward heard about the disappearing cars on Old Briar Road, he thought it was just another rural urban legend, the kind locals used to scare tourists. But after 3 people he personally knew vanished in the same stretch of cracked asphalt between mile marker 11 and 12, he realized the story was far older, darker, and far more deliberate than anything he had imagined. The road itself did not look like a place where a nightmare could live. It wound lazily through the outskirts of Ridgeway, a small American town tucked between forests that never quite lost their fog. The pines stood unnervingly still, even when winds elsewhere were sharp and loud. Ethan had grown up driving this road every day to school, barely noticing it. But 2 weeks ago, on a night soaked in rain and thunder, his childhood friend Mason Hale vanished without leaving a trace. Mason had been driving home from a late shift and had texted Ethan he was 5 minutes away. 5 minutes became an hour, then 3, then forever. The police found his abandoned phone on the passenger seat of his idling truck. The truck was parked perfectly on the shoulder windows, rolled up headlights on engine running, but Mason was gone. Ethan stood on that same shoulder now, staring into the thin, pale mist drifting above the road. He felt the air pressing in cold and wrong, like the world was exhaling something it should have kept buried. The asphalt ahead was darker than it should have been, almost glossy, despite the overcast sky. Locals whispered that once you passed mile marker 11, the road was no longer a road. It became a doorway. Sometimes it opened, and sometimes it closed. No one who entered when it opened ever came back out. Ethan did not believe in supernatural things before, but Mason was the kind of man who would never run away. Something had taken him, something that liked cars, something that liked people inside them. Determined, Ethan returned to Old Briar Road every night, searching for any clue. Tonight was different. The forest seemed to lean in closer, branches angled downward, like skeletal limbs eager to listen. The hum of insects had stopped. Even the wind sounded hesitant. He checked his watch. Midnight. Mason vanished at midnight. So did the couple last summer, and the trucker 3 years ago. It was always midnight. The stories said the road awakened at that hour, hungry for something it had been denied. Ethan remained inside his car, headlights aimed forward. He whispered to himself that he was only observing, not crossing. But as the clock hit 12, the headlights flickered, then dimmed. A tremor rolled beneath the asphalt, like something large shifting just below the surface. The mist rose, twisting into shapes resembling hands or faces, or perhaps his imagination grasping for meaning. His radio crackled, though it was turned off. A distorted voice emerged, whispering his name twice in a tone too familiar. Mason. Ethan felt goosebumps ripple across his arms. He leaned closer, eyes fixed on the shadows. The voice returned quieter this time, as if speaking from underwater. Ethan, don't let it take you too. His breath froze. He started the engine, ready to leave, but the road ahead stretched farther than before, impossibly long, as if the horizon had been pushed back. The line of pines that once hugged the curve curve were rearranged taller, denser, closing in like walls. Ethan blinked hard. The road changed while he was looking at it. Something was wrong with time, with space, with everything. He shifted the car into reverse. Nothing happened. The gear clicked, but the car did not move. It was like the road held the tires in place. He pressed the gas pedal. Still nothing. Panic clawed at him. The fog thickened, curling along the windshield like a living veil. The radio crackled louder, and his headlights turned blood red for a moment, bathing the trees in a violent glow. Then Ethan saw it. A figure standing in the fog 10 yards ahead. Tall, still, faceless, its body blurred like static drifting from an old television. He felt every instinct scream to run, but the car remained trapped. The figure tilted its head to the left in a motion disturbingly identical to Mason whenever he joked about being confused. It beckoned him forward without lifting its arm. The fog simply parted, forming a path that invited him. Ethan forced himself to look away, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He pressed the horn. The sound came out distorted low and stretched like a dying animal. The figure stepped closer, soundless and fluid. Ethan reached for his phone, but it shut off instantly. Though the battery had been full, the world was being rewritten around him, and he was the only one aware of the transition. A gust of icy wind swept through the car, even though the windows were closed. Ethan gasped as something unseen passed behind him, brushing the back of his neck like a faint whisper of fingers. He twisted around. Nothing, but the temperature kept dropping. He exhaled and watched his breath fog the air. The figure now stood directly in front of his hood. It was close enough that he felt pressure in his ears, like the atmosphere was bending. The surface of its form rippled with glimpses of other places, distant highways, roaring storms, twisting lights, rows of cars abandoned, drifting upward into darkness. He saw Mason for a split second, sitting in his truck, staring at Ethan with eyes hollow and pleading. Mason mouthed one word: "Leave." The figure absorbed the vision, then leaned forward as if studying Ethan. A deep, thrumming vibration pulsed through the car, shaking the mirrors. The road beneath them cracked open, slightly thin, red light flickering through the gaps, as if the earth were not solid, but a thin shell over something vast and waiting. Ethan closed his eyes and prayed. He did not know who or what he was praying to, but desperation shaped the words. When he opened his eyes, the figure was gone. The headlights returned to normal. The radio fell silent. The fog retreated. The car finally responded when he shifted back into reverse. Ethan pressed the accelerator, and the vehicle lurched backward, free at last. He did not stop until he reached the main highway, trembling uncontrollably. Whatever lived on Old Briar Road did not take him tonight, but it had noticed him, and Ethan knew for certain he would never be the same. The road wanted something, and for reasons he could not understand, he felt it would not rest until it had him too. Ethan Ward did not sleep the night he escaped Old Briar Road. His hands shook so violently he could barely pull the keys from his ignition. Even after he stumbled inside his apartment, he kept turning the lights on and off, convinced the hallway outside was stretching longer than it should, or that the static figure from the road would appear behind him in the glass pane of the kitchen window. Exhaustion wrapped around him like a fever, but fear kept him awake long after dawn crawled through the blinds. When he finally collapsed onto the couch, his dreams were filled with flickering headlights, red and wrong, the color of warning signs from a world that did not want him to return. By noon, Ethan forced himself upright. The world outside looked ordinary. People walked dogs. Cars passed by without vanishing. Birds perched on telephone wires like they always did. But Ethan felt the shift deep inside him. Something from that road had followed him. He could sense it in the strange stillness of the air. Every time he paused to listen, it felt as if the silence itself held its breath, waiting for him to notice it. He splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection. He expected to see the static figure standing behind him. Instead, he saw the same tired hazel eyes he had stared into for years, but there was new tension in them, a tremor of dread he could not hide. He dried his hands, checked his phone, and found several missed calls from Detective Laura Pierce, the woman leading the investigation into Mason's disappearance. They had spoken often these past 2 weeks, but he had never told her the real reason he kept returning to Old Briar Road. Until last night, he did not have the courage to believe it. He stepped outside just as a soft sound drifted toward him. At first, it was indistinct, something like wind dragging across a broken antenna. Then it grew sharper, crackling with a faint rhythm. Static. Ethan froze. The sound was coming from behind him, though there was nothing but an empty yard and the alleyway beside his building. The static pulsed twice, slow like a heartbeat, then faded. Ethan backed away, eyes scanning the shadows for movement. Nothing moved except his own breath. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from an unknown number appeared with no contact name. "Ethan, you saw it too." His stomach twisted. He typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "Someone who survived. Meet me where the road begins. Sunset." Ethan tried calling the number, but it went straight to a disconnected tone. He paced for nearly an hour, debating whether this was a trap or a desperate plea. "Anyone who survived." The words replayed in his mind like a scratched recording. If someone else had encountered the road and lived, they might know what it wanted, why it changed, what it was becoming, and maybe they knew what happened to Mason. By sunset, the sky peeled into shades of rust and blue, the color of fading warmth. Ethan drove toward the outskirts of Ridgeway, each mile knotting his nerves tighter. As he neared Old Briar Road, he noticed how the trees looked taller than before, like they had grown overnight, bending inward, as if watching him approach. The temperature dropped sharply, although it was midsummer. A dull ringing built in his ears, almost like pressure shifting before a storm. A figure stood near the entrance of Old Briar Road, leaning against a rusted guardrail. Ethan slowed his car and rolled down the window cautiously. The man appeared in his mid-40s, with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that held the glazed look of someone who had spent too much time remembering things they wished they could forget. "You are Ethan Ward?" he asked. His voice was low, cautious, like someone always listening behind himself. Ethan nodded. The man stepped closer, glancing around as though expecting the trees to reach for him. "Name is Daniel Coster. I guess you could call me the first person the road tried to take." Ethan stepped out of the car. Daniel looked him over with urgency. "You should not have come back here," he muttered. "The road already marked you. If you come too close, it will try again." "I need answers," Ethan said. "My friend Mason vanished 2 weeks ago, and last night something almost took me too." Daniel's eyes darkened with recognition. "The same time of night, midnight," he murmured. "That is when it opens. That is when the rules change." Ethan swallowed. "What is it? Why does it take cars? Why did it show me Mason?" Daniel looked down at the gravel under his boots. "The answer is not one people want to believe. That stretch of road was built on top of something ancient, something older than the town, older than the forest. They thought paving over it would silence it, but the road became a bridge instead, a bridge between here and somewhere else. When the conditions align, it pulls through like a mouth opening." Ethan felt a chill slide down his spine. "And the cars?" he asked. Daniel sighed. "It uses whatever crosses its path. It feeds on motion, on the energy of travelers. But sometimes it takes people too, not because it needs them, but because they notice it. Awareness attracts it. You noticed it last night. That is why you are in danger." Before Ethan could respond, a soft vibration hummed across the asphalt behind them. The sound grew sharper. Crackling, static. Daniel stiffened. "It is early. It should not awaken before midnight. Something is changing." Ethan turned toward the origin of the sound. The mist was creeping along the road, though the sun had not fully set. It crawled like fingers reaching forward, searching for someone, searching for him. Daniel grabbed his arm. "We need to leave now." But the static grew louder, so loud it felt like it drilled into Ethan's teeth. He staggered backward, clutching his head as visions flickered across his sight. Cars drifting upward into a black sky, headlights flickering in an endless void. Mason, standing on a road that looped into nothingness, calling his name with a voice that did not belong to him anymore. Ethan gasped and dropped to his knees. The mist reached his shoes, curling upward with intent. Daniel pulled him harder. "Ethan, focus. If it takes you while you are not inside a vehicle, you will not end up where the others are. You will end up somewhere far worse." The words jolted through him. Ethan forced himself to stand, his legs trembling. The static surged louder, then suddenly cut off like a switch flipped. The mist froze in place, suspended like a photograph. Daniel exhaled shakily. "It is testing you," he whispered, "seeing if you will run, seeing what you fear." Ethan steadied his breath. "I am not leaving until I know how to stop this. If it marked me, then it marked me for a reason." Daniel studied him long before nodding. "Then we meet tomorrow night. Same place, but do not come alone. Bring someone who will believe you, and do not answer if you hear your name in the radio, no matter what voice it uses." Ethan returned to his car, heart pounding. As he drove away, he glanced at his rearview mirror. The mist was gone. The forest stood silent, but the road looked different somehow, longer, darker, as if the world just beyond it was preparing itself for him. And Ethan knew with crushing certainty that the nightmare had only begun. Ethan Ward woke the next morning with the heavy feeling of a man being watched by something he could not see. The eerie silence in his apartment carried a quiet tremor, like the final echo of a storm that forgot to leave. His dreams had been jagged fragments of headlights bleeding into darkness, Mason's hollow eyes whispering a warning without a voice, and the static figure that flickered at the edge of every imagined window. Even awake, he felt a pressure at the back of his skull, as though the road itself had left an imprint inside him, a mark that pulsed faintly beneath the skin. He sat upright, rubbed his face, and stared at the faint morning light filtering through the blinds. Everything seemed normal, yet nothing felt normal. He could hear the hum of his refrigerator water pipes ticking as they settled. But underneath it all, there was something else. A faint, low vibration, more felt than heard, like the dull resonance of an old speaker struggling to power on. He knew that sound. It followed him since the night the road nearly swallowed him. Ethan tried to shake the thought away as he prepared coffee, but the spoon rattled inside the mug in a pulsing rhythm inconsistent with his movements. He froze. The vibration was growing stronger. It pulsed twice, then fell silent, exactly the same pattern he had heard behind him in the alley the previous day. The road was reaching for him even miles away. He backed away from the counter, breath uneven. He knew he could not stay in this apartment. Daniel Costa had been clear. Awareness attracts it. And Ethan had spent the entire night thinking about the road, terrified of what it wanted. He grabbed his keys and headed outside, only to freeze at the sight of his car. The windshield was fogged from the inside. A faint smear trailed across the glass, like a finger dragged slowly along the surface. He swallowed hard. Whatever left that mark had been inside. He opened the door cautiously. The interior smelled of cold earth and old rain, faint but undeniable. On the passenger seat lay a small object. Ethan leaned in for a closer look. It was Mason's keychain, a worn metal tag shaped like a lightning bolt, the one Mason always kept on his truck keys. Ethan's heart pounded. He had seen the police take that keychain as evidence after Mason vanished. How did it end up here? The air inside the car chilled instantly. Ethan jerked back as a ripple of static shimmered in the rearview mirror. For a brief moment, he saw headlights behind him. Even though the parking lot was empty, the lights blinked once, then disappeared, leaving only the faint smell of burning rubber behind. Ethan stepped away from the car, hands trembling. His phone buzzed violently in his pocket. He checked the screen, expecting another impossible message. But instead, it was Detective Laura Pierce. He hesitated, then answered. "Ethan," she said without introduction, "we need to talk. Something happened last night." His stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "A car was found abandoned on Old Briar Road. Same place your friend disappeared." Ethan felt cold wash over him. "Who was it?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Another local, a young woman named Abigail Reeves. Her phone was found inside, still recording. She was screaming your name." The words struck him like a blow. "My name? Why would she even know who I am?" "That is what we are trying to figure out," Detective Pierce replied. "But whatever happened out there, it is getting worse." And I think you know more than you are telling me. Ethan closed his eyes. She was right, and yet telling her the truth meant pulling her into something far beyond a normal investigation. He hesitated until he heard her voice soften slightly. "Ethan, I want to help you, but if you keep secrets, people will keep disappearing." He exhaled slowly. "Meet me tonight," he said, "near the entrance to Old Briar Road. There is someone you need to talk to." Pierce paused. "Ethan, be careful. That road is not just a crime scene. Something about it does not behave like the others." He hung up and collected himself. If the road was speaking people through their radios and phones, if it was calling his name through strangers, then delay would only make things worse. He needed answers, and Daniel seemed to know more than he admitted yesterday. As evening approached, Ethan drove to the meeting point. The forest lining Old Briar Road felt different, thicker, darker, as though shadows clung to the branches like living things. The air was unnaturally still. Not even insects dared to make a sound. Ethan parked at the same spot where he had met Daniel. As he stepped out, he felt the ground vibrate beneath his feet, a low, subtle hum that resonated through his bones. The road was awake. A second car approached, headlights cutting through the deepening dusk. Detective Pierce stepped out wearing a serious expression framed by the waning daylight. She eyed the surroundings with unease. "This place feels wrong," she murmured, "like the air is listening." "It is," Ethan replied quietly, "and it never forgets." Before Pierce could question him, Daniel emerged from the tree line, his face etched with worry. "You should not have come early," he said. "It stirs before midnight now." "That has never happened." Pierce studied Daniel carefully. "You must be the person Ethan wanted me to meet." Daniel nodded. "Detective Laura Pierce, I've read your reports, but none of them come close to explaining what is happening here." She crossed her arms. "Then explain it." Daniel looked toward the road. "It remembers people who cross it, not just physically, but through their fears, their memories, their connections. When someone thinks about it too long, it reaches back, and if it learns your name, it can pull you even without your car." Pierce frowned. "Roads do not learn names." "This one does," Daniel whispered. "Because it is not a road. It is something pretending to be one." Suddenly, the static burst from the direction of the asphalt, sharp and violent. Ethan staggered as a wave of pressure crashed over him, like a sudden drop in altitude. Pierce grabbed her ears, wincing, while Daniel braced himself against the guardrail. Mist surged across the stretch of pavement, thick and fast. Despite the lack of wind, it glowed faintly, pulses of light rippling through it like breath. Pierce stared in shock. "What is that?" "It is early," Daniel said, trembling. "It should not be opening yet. Something is drawing it out." Ethan knew instantly. It was him. The road had marked him, and now it was responding to his presence. The mist spiraled upward, forming a column of swirling light. Within it, shapes flickered, cars drifting weightless into the void, people screaming without sound, distant headlights arcing through impossibly dark space. Ethan saw Mason again, reaching toward him, eyes empty and mouth forming a silent plea. Pierce stepped forward instinctively, but Daniel yanked her back. "Do not move," he warned. "If it notices you, it will take you instead." The column of mist bent slowly, turning toward Ethan, like a massive eye adjusting its focus. The static intensified, warping the edges of reality itself. Ethan's vision blurred. The trees curved unnaturally. The sky thinned to gray streaks as if painted hastily. The world trembled. "The road remembers you, Ethan. You cannot run forever," Daniel said, his voice trembling. Ethan took a shaky breath. "Then tell me how to stop it." Daniel looked at him with haunted eyes. "You cannot stop something that was here before us, but you can negotiate with it." The static roared as the mist surged closer. Pierce whispered, "Ethan, what is happening?" Ethan stared into the mist, heart pounding. The road wanted him, and he needed to know why. The night closed around them like a tightening fist, and the road waited patiently, as though expecting an answer. The mist loomed before Ethan like a breathing curtain of pale light, the same unnatural radiance that had haunted his dreams for weeks. The air thickened around him, clinging to his skin like cold glue. Daniel stood rigid beside him, eyes darting nervously between Ethan and the shifting glow, as if expecting the road to reach forward and swallow one of them whole. Detective Laura Pierce, however, remained frozen, halfway between disbelief and terror, her gaze fixed on the column of swirling light rising from the asphalt. It bent toward them as if curious, as if listening. Ethan forced himself to take one step closer. The air pulsed twice a heartbeat rhythm he had come to recognize. Beneath the sound of static, he could hear faint voices overlapping like echoes cast from distant worlds. Some voices cried out in fear, others whispered familiar names. When he heard Mason's voice threaded among them, his breath hitched. Each syllable sounded stretched, distorted like a recording slowly melting. He wanted to call back, but Daniel gripped his shoulder. "Do not speak its name and do not answer to yours," Daniel warned. "If you do, the connection becomes permanent." Pierce blinked several times, trying to regain her composure. "What do you mean, permanent?" she demanded, her voice trembling despite her attempt to hide it. Daniel avoided her gaze. He stared at Ethan. "It wants something from you. You feel it, do you not?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Since the night it almost took me," Daniel exhaled shakily. "Then you must understand this. There are rules that were not written by humans. Rules about who it can take and when. And once you learn them, you become part of the agreement whether you want to or not." The mist again pulsed, twice its glow intensifying. The column stretched higher, twisting as if sensing their conversation. Pierce stepped backward instinctively, but the road reacted, twisting the shadows around her feet. She gasped, then looked at Ethan. "I am starting to believe you," she muttered. "Like it or not, that makes you visible to it," Daniel murmured. Ethan's heart pounded. "What does it want with me?" Daniel hesitated. Finally he spoke. "A witness, someone who can see both sides, someone who can be taken without breaking the balance. The others who vanished, they were not chosen. They were accidents. But you, Ethan, you are being invited. The words hit Ethan like a punch. Invited. The mist swirled faster, responding to the tension. Pierce squared her shoulders, taking a firm step forward. Enough. You two need to tell me everything, right now. If something is killing people on this road, we need to stop it, not discuss invitations. Daniel lifted a hand. Detective, you need to understand. This thing is not killing them, at least not in the way you think. It absorbs them, uses them, holds them, and sometimes it gives them back. Pierce narrowed her eyes. Gives them back. That is impossible. Ethan shuddered, remembering the figure he saw on the road, the one with Mason's posture, the one that beckoned him forward. He whispered, "It shows pieces of them. Visions. They look real. They feel real. But I do not think they are alive anymore." A tremor shook the ground beneath their feet. The static surged louder. Lightning flickered inside the mist, though the sky above remained clear. Daniel's face paled. It is too early. It should not be this strong. Ethan stepped forward, compelled by an instinct he could not explain. The mist parted slightly, forming a narrow path of glowing air. Each step he took felt heavier, as though gravity thickened around him. Pierce reached for him, but Daniel grabbed her wrist, stopping her. "You cannot follow him. It chose him, not you." Pierce glared at Daniel. "I am not letting him walk into that thing alone." "If you cross that boundary," Daniel said, voice breaking, "you will vanish before you even understand how." But Ethan kept walking. The mist around him vibrated softly like distant chimes. Shadows flickered inside the swirling column shapes, stretching and collapsing like reflections on water. He could not tell whether they were people or memories or something else entirely. His ears rang painfully. Then suddenly, he heard Mason's voice again, clearer than before. "Ethan, do not let it decide for you." Ethan froze. The voice was unmistakably his friend's, but the tone carried an echo of hunger, something hollow that did not belong to Mason. He forced himself to turn away, resisting the pull. Then the world changed. The forest around him blurred, bending sideways like melting paint. The sky rippled. Pierce shouted something, but her voice sounded stretched thin. Daniel called to him, though his words dissolved into static. Ethan tried to step backward, but his feet anchored to the ground as if the road itself held him. The mist rose higher, enveloping him in pale radiance. He felt pressure building in his chest, as though the air was pushing into him rather than the other way around. His heartbeat synced with the pulsing of the road. For a moment, he saw beyond the mist, a glimpse of a vast dark expanse filled with drifting cars, floating weightless like stars. Some headlights glowed faintly, others flickered out like dying lanterns. The road extended into that void like a bridge of broken asphalt, suspended in an impossible sky. Rows of figures stood along the bridge, barely visible silhouettes of people with hollow faces. They watched him without moving. He felt their attention like a cold breath against his skin. One figure stepped forward. Mason. But it was not Mason. It wore his shape, but something behind the eyes, something empty and endless, stared at Ethan with a hunger that twisted his stomach. It raised its hand and the mist surged toward Ethan. No, Ethan did not know whether he shouted the word or merely thought it. But the mist recoiled slightly, giving him just enough clarity to pull back. He staggered, retreating out of the glowing boundary. Pierce grabbed his arm and yanked him backward, hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. The mist lunged, but Daniel hurled a handful of gravel into it, an act that did nothing physically, but seemed to disrupt its momentum. The glow pulsed violently, then dissipated like a dying flame. The forest stilled. The static faded. The world snapped back into its normal shape, though Ethan felt anything but normal. His legs trembled violently. Pierce held him steady as Daniel stepped closer, eyes wide with fear. "You should not have been able to resist it," Daniel whispered. "If you rejected the invitation, it will try again, but stronger." Ethan swallowed hard, fighting the urge to collapse. "What did I just see?" Daniel shook his head. "The edge of its world, the place it drags the cars. But no one should see that and return. No one." Pierce stared at Ethan in horror. "What does it want from him?" Daniel looked at the road, his voice barely a breath. "A messenger, a guide, someone who understands both sides. If it succeeds, Ethan will not just disappear. He will become part of the road." The silence that followed stretched long and cold. Ethan looked at the dark stretch of asphalt ahead. It pulsed faintly once, like a heart acknowledging him. And Ethan understood something terrible. The road was learning him, studying him, and sooner or later it would come for him whether he was ready or not. The night after Ethan confronted the mist left him drained, like something had reached inside him and pulled at the core of who he was. Sleep refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the hollow-faced figures standing on the broken bridge that stretched into the void. He heard Mason's distorted warning echoing through layers of static, and always beneath it all, he felt the faint pulse of the road, matching the beat of his heart. By morning, the world felt thinner, grittier, as if reality itself had scraped against something unnatural. Ethan stepped outside, half expecting the sky to ripple like it had near the boundary. But the sky above Ridgeway was calm, a clear, pale blue, too normal. Detective Pierce called before he reached his car. Her voice was tight, controlled. "Ethan, there is someone you need to meet." Immediately, he hesitated. "Is it about the road?" "Yeah." "And no. Just come to the station. It is easier if you see it yourself." When Ethan arrived, Pierce led him down a quiet hallway to an observation room looking into a small interview space. Inside sat a young woman, maybe mid-20s, her hair messy, her hands trembling as she clutched a plastic cup. Her eyes darted around constantly, like she expected something to crawl from the fluorescent lighting above her. "That is Abigail Reeves," Pierce whispered. "The girl who vanished last night." Ethan felt a shock ripple through him. "But you said she disappeared." "That her phone was found recording, but she was gone. She was for 7 hours. Then she reappeared on the edge of town, walking barefoot along the main highway. A trucker nearly hit her. He said she came out of nowhere." Ethan watched the trembling woman more closely. She looked alive, but that was not the unsettling part. It was something else. Something he could not name yet. Pierce continued. "She kept repeating the same phrase when we found her, over and over." "What phrase?" Pierce swallowed. "It remembered me wrong. A chill slid through Ethan's spine. Pierce motioned him to follow her into the interview room. When they entered, Abigail lifted her head slowly. Her eyes widened as she fixed on Ethan. "You," she whispered. "It wanted you too." Ethan froze. Abigail leaned forward, breath shaky. "I heard your name in the dark, in that place. It kept saying it was learning you." Pierce sat across from her gently. "Abigail, we need you to focus. Tell us what happened when you disappeared." Abigail squeezed the cup until it cracked. "I was driving home. Radio died. Headlights flickered. Then the road stretched longer and longer, like it was unfolding under my tires. I tried to turn around, but the wheel would not move." Her voice cracked. Then the fog came, thick, bright, like it was made of light. Ethan exchanged a look with Pierce. Abigail continued. "I saw cars floating in the sky, not falling, not rising, just drifting like they were trapped in syrup. And there were people standing on a road that was not a road. They had no shadows. Their faces were wrong, like someone remembered faces but forgot how to make them real." She gripped her hair, shaking. And then something spoke, not with words, with images, with feelings. It wanted to show me something, but it did not know me. It guessed. "Wrong." Ethan leaned in. "What do you mean, wrong?" She looked up, eyes wide with horror. "It showed me memories I never lived. A birthday in a house I have never seen. A man who called me his daughter. A friend whose name I did not recognize. It was trying to build me, but it did not know how." Pierce inhaled sharply, like it was trying to reassemble you. "Yes," Abigail whispered. "When I woke up back here, I felt lighter, and then I realized it." She held out her hand. "I do not cast a shadow." Ethan and Pierce turned toward the mirror. Abigail raised her hand. Light fell across the table, but no shadow appeared beneath her palm. Ethan took a step back, Pierce's face drained of color. Abigail let her hand fall limply. "I think the real me is still there, wherever there is, and this me is just what it made to replace the space I left behind." Before Ethan could respond, a sudden vibration rattled the metal table. The lights flickered. Abigail gasped and clutched her head. "No, no, no, no. It is here. It followed me." Pierce reached for her weapon, though what she expected to shoot was unclear. Ethan felt pressure building inside his skull, the same sensation he felt when the mist reached for him. The humming static grew louder, distorting the air. Abigail screamed, "It is calling your name again." The lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Ethan's breath hitched. The static grew so thick he could feel it crawling along his skin like electricity. Pierce's hand brushed his arm in the dark. "Ethan," she whispered, "do not answer it, no matter what it shows you." A faint glow appeared near the corner of the room. Mist, thin at first, then thickening, curling like smoke underwater. The shape inside it flickered slowly, forming a silhouette, hunched and trembling. Abigail sobbed, "It is trying to fix me. It thinks I broke." The silhouette sharpened. Ethan saw glimpses of a face shifting desperately through hundreds of expressions, failing to settle on one. A mouth formed and collapsed. Eyes blinked without sinking. The thing stepped forward, reaching for Abigail. Pierce fired her gun 3 times. The bullets passed through the mist harmlessly, but the sound disrupted the shape, causing it to ripple violently. before collapsing inward. The static throbbed once, then dissolved. The lights returned. Abigail lay slumped over the table, unconscious. Pierce rushed to her side, checking her pulse. She is alive, but weak. Ethan stared at the faint traces of mist lingering in the air. The entity had reached into a police station, into a closed room. Distance meant nothing now. Pierce looked at him gravely. Ethan, you said it marked you. If that is true, then this is escalating because of you. Ethan felt cold settling into his chest. It is not escalating because of me. It is escalating because it is getting stronger. Pierce straightened. Then we cannot wait. Tonight we go back, all three of us. We make the road face us on our terms. Ethan hesitated. Daniel said if you cross too far, you will vanish before you see it coming. Pierce's voice hardened. Then we do not cross. We stand at the edge, and we make it talk. Ethan exhaled slowly. He knew there was no turning back anymore. The road was no longer waiting for midnight, no longer waiting for cars, no longer waiting for the right conditions. It was coming for them, and if they did not confront it soon, he feared the entire town of Ridgeway would become another place the world remembered wrong. The sun had barely set when Ridgeway began to feel wrong. The town usually settled into quiet evenings, filled with porch lights and the faint hum of passing cars. But tonight, an unnatural hush blanketed every street. Crickets fell silent. Dogs refused to bark. Even the wind seemed to stop just short of entering the town, as if it feared what waited inside. Ethan Ward stood outside the police station beside Detective Laura Pierce, the air chilled with a tension neither could shake. Abigail Reeves remained inside under medical observation, but even there the lights flickered each time she exhaled. The mist had followed her, and none of them knew how long the thin barrier between the road and the town would last. Pierce slammed the trunk of her cruiser, checking her flashlight and gear. "You sure you want to do this?" she asked without looking up. "You saw what it did to Abigail. You know what it wants from you." Ethan inhaled slowly. "If we do nothing, it will take someone else, maybe the entire town, and I cannot let that happen." Pierce studied him for a moment, a subtle respect softening her otherwise stern eyes. "Then let's make the road talk." Daniel Coster arrived minutes later, his face lined with exhaustion. He held a worn leather notebook pressed tightly against his chest. Before Pierce could ask, he spoke. "I wrote everything I know, everything I have seen. Maybe it will help tonight, maybe not, but the road is awake now. It is listening." Ethan felt the weight of Daniel's words. The road was not just some supernatural force. It had awareness, intention, hunger, and worst of all, it had begun crossing boundaries it once respected. The trio headed toward Old Briar Road in separate vehicles. Along the way, Ethan noticed small disturbances, street lights flickering as he passed beneath them, radio static whispering faint syllables of his name, his dashboard briefly displaying distances that did not make sense. 4 miles to the station he had just left, 3 miles to a location that did not exist, 0 miles to nowhere. Pierce's voice came through the radio. "Ethan, stay focused. If it tries to talk talk to you. Ignore it. Static swallowed her voice for a moment. When it returned, it was deeper wrong, like someone imitating her. Ethan turned the radio off and did not dare touch it again. When they reached the entrance of Old Briar Road, the forest was already shifting. The tree line curved inward, branches bending like skeletal arms reaching toward the asphalt. Mist seeped between the roots, glowing softly with pulses of dim light that rhythmically matched Ethan's heartbeat. Daniel stepped forward, clutching his notebook tightly. It knows we came together. It reacts differently when there's more than one. Sometimes it retreats, sometimes it tries harder. Pierce flicked her flashlight on. We are not here to provoke it, just to force it to reveal something we can use. But Ethan felt differently. The road had been pursuing him, whispering, pulling, showing him pieces of its world. Now he needed it to recognize he would not run anymore. The mist thickened, spiraling upward until it formed a column stretching 20 feet into the air. Inside the glowing fog, shapes flickered, shifting silhouettes of people caught between form and memory. The road is opening, Daniel said, voice trembling. But it is not midnight. It is answering you. Ethan stepped closer. The mist pulsed twice. He felt something pass through him, like a cold hand brushing against his heart. His breath hitched. Pierce grabbed his arm. Don't move unless I tell you. If it senses hesitation, it will strike. But Ethan shook free. I need to try something. Daniel whispered a warning. But Ethan stepped toward the swirling column of mist. The air thrummed with vibrations, and the shapes inside shifted rapidly, as if searching for a face to become. Ethan called into the glow. Why me? What do you want with me? The mist went still. Then it answered, not with words, but with a distortion, a tug pulling at Ethan's memories. His mind filled with images, Mason's smile, childhood streets, the night Ethan almost drowned at 15, the face of his mother on her last day alive. Then the images changed. He saw a version of himself he had never lived. A version walking along an endless void, guiding lost cars across a bridge of fractured light. He saw himself speaking without a mouth, calling out to those who approached the boundary. He saw himself as part of the road. Ethan stumbled backward. Pierce caught him. What's happening? She demanded. Daniel hurried forward, flipping open his notebook. The road is showing him what it wants. A guide between worlds. A messenger. It thinks Ethan can survive the crossing because his awareness is strong enough to shape the transition. Pierce muttered a curse. That's not happening. Not to him. The mist swirled violently. A shape stepped forward, forming into a silhouette wearing Mason's face. Hollow eyes, distorted mouth. It raised a trembling hand. Ethan. The voice cracked like broken glass. Ethan felt his resolve shaking. He took a step toward it, unable to breathe. Pierce grabbed him firmly. Ethan, look at me. That is not Mason. That thing is a mask. The real Mason is not inside that. The silhouette shuddered, expression twisting into something predatory and desperate. It lunged. Pierce shoved Ethan aside just as the mist figure exploded toward them. Daniel threw a handful of salt across the boundary, and for an instant, the mist recoiled, hissing silently as its glow dimmed. The road is weakening, Daniel said, astonished. It does not like disruption from the living world. Pierce steadied her stance, flashlight pointed at the swirling fog. What now? Daniel took a breath. Ethan must command it, not beg, not question. Command. The road works on rules. If Ethan asserts his will, it has to respond. Ethan's voice shook, but he stepped forward again. The mist pulsed. Recognizing him, he shouted into the glow, "You cannot take me. Not tonight. Not like this. I reject your invitation." The mist convulsed, the air trembling so violently that the ground cracked beneath their feet. A deep groaning echoed through the forest, like the earth itself was protesting. Shapes inside the mist flickered wildly. Cars twisting, bodies folding, roads bending. That world beyond the veil writhed with chaos. Ethan forced the words out. "I am not yours. If you want something from me, you answer my questions first. You show me the truth. All of it." For the first time since he had encountered Old Briar Road, the mist went still. Then it parted, splitting down the center, to reveal a narrow path carved into darkness. Daniel gasped. "It is letting you in, not taking you. Letting you." Pierce grabbed Ethan's wrist. "If you go in, you may not come back." Ethan looked into the darkness. For the first time, he felt not fear but clarity. The road had chosen him. But now, for the first time, it was following his terms. "If I don't go," he said quietly, "it will come for all of us." Pierce swallowed hard. "Then we go together." Daniel shook his head in horror. "If more than one crosses, the rules change. The balance breaks. It will destroy you." The mist vibrated impatiently, the open path pulsing brighter. Ethan stepped forward. The road was waiting, and this time he intended to meet it on equal ground. The moment Ethan stepped toward the path, the mist reacted like a living thing, inhaling sharply as if drawing him into its lungs. The air thickened around his body, gripping him with invisible fingers. Detective Pierce's hand clamped onto his wrist, pulling him back with more force than he expected from her. Her voice cracked. "Ethan, stop. You cannot cross that line." But the path pulsed softly, almost soothingly, as if whispering to him. The glow shimmered pale blue, then dimmed into a color he could not name, something between memory and dream. Ethan felt as though the road was reading him again, learning him, adjusting itself to whatever shape it needed to lure him inside. He felt the pressure behind his eyes, the same sensation he felt in Abigail's presence, like reality was bending to fit around him. Daniel stepped beside them, shaking his head so violently that his gray-streaked hair whipped across his forehead. No, Ethan, listen to me. A path opened willingly is far more dangerous than one that appears by force. It means the road has chosen a form it knows you cannot resist. Pierce glared at Daniel. Then we force it shut. We do not walk in. We make it retract. Daniel breathed out a shaky laugh. Detective, you cannot force something older than the forest, older than the highway, older than Ridgeway. You cannot command a creature that dreams in landscapes and feeds on echoes. Ethan looked at the swirling light. I am already connected to it. That is why it opened. If I do not go in now, it will just come for me later. And next time I might not wake up in my own world. Before Pierce could argue, the mist shifted its shape. It swirled upward, then collapsed inward, forming a hollow archway carved from luminous fog. Inside, Ethan saw darkness, not empty but full of faint, drifting orbs like the headlights of cars floating in a distant storm. He saw fragments of roads twisting like broken spines through a horizon that should not exist. He saw movement, shadows, faces he recognized, and others he did not. One figure stepped into view near the threshold. Mason, or at least the shape that wore Mason's outline. Hollow eyes, bent frame, but now the face was stabilizing, as if forming more clearly. It looked more human now, almost alive. The lips parted. "Ethan." The voice sounded closer to Mason's real voice, less distorted. Too familiar. Pierce pulled Ethan harder. "That is not him. I know what grief feels like, Ethan, but this is not your friend." Ethan forced himself to look into the hollow eyes. He whispered, "What are you?" The figure stilled. Its face trembled like static caught on a screen. Then the mouth stretched into a thin, wrong smile. "We are what remains when the world forgets us." Ethan's lungs froze. He felt cold seep deep beneath his skin. Daniel stepped forward, voice steady, though fear trembled beneath it. "The road is not a singular entity. It is made of the memories of those it has taken. A hive mind of lost travelers, some willing, many not." The figure shifted, its smile faltering. "We are waiting, Ethan. You are almost ready." Pierce stepped between Ethan and the mist, pointing her flashlight directly at the figure. Her voice sharpened like steel against stone. "If you want him, you go through me." The figure tilted its head, then another face slid over its features. Abigail's face, then a man Ethan had never seen, then Ethan's own face, hollow and empty. It echoed Pierce's words. "You go through me." The form collapsed into mist, dissolving into the archway. The path widened, inviting. Pierce cursed under her breath. "I hate this place." Daniel's notebook fell open to a page filled with frantic handwriting. He scanned it, muttering, "There are rules. If a path opens willingly, it cannot close until a question is answered, one that the road recognizes." Pierce frowned. "So we ask the right question." Daniel nodded. "Something it cannot twist, something bound to truth." Ethan inhaled the cold, misty air. "What do we ask?" Daniel looked at him, eyes heavy with dread. "Ask why it chose you, not what it wants." "Why you?" Ethan stepped forward, pulse pounding in his ears. The mist archway flickered like a heartbeat. He raised his voice. "Why me?" The mist stilled. The drifting orbs inside froze midair. Even the air around them tightened as though listening. The voice that answered was not Mason's. Not the echo of 100 travelers. It was something deeper, layered, timeless. "Because you remember the things the world tries to erase." Ethan staggered backward, nearly tripping. Pierce steadied him. Daniel whispered, "Memory is its food. Trauma, fear, things the human mind tries to bury. It feeds on the remnants." The voice continued. "You carry more memory than most, more scars, more echoes. You are already part of the threshold." A pressure formed in Ethan's chest, like something pushing outward, trying to break free. He gasped, His memories flashed again, but this time they came faster, like a dam bursting. His childhood accident, the lake, his mother's final breath, Mason laughing in the rain, the moment Abigail grabbed his arm in the station, screaming his name, all of it overlapping. Pierce saw Ethan shaking and stepped in front of him. "Stop it! You do not get to break him." The mist darkened around the archway. The voice sharpened. "We do not break what we claim. We complete it." Ethan forced a breath. "Enough! Stop!" The mist shuddered. In that moment, Ethan realized something. The road listened to him differently. When he spoke, it reacted even when resisting him. He faced the archway. "If you want me to enter, then you must show me something real. Not a memory, not a shape you built. Something true." Daniel sucked in a breath. "Ethan, no, you do not bargain with it." But the mist responded. The archway widened, and inside, the darkness shifted. A new scene emerged. A road, but not Old Briar Road. This one stretched across a gray sky like a bridge held by nothing. Cars floated beneath it, drifting into the void. People walked along the roadway, some whole, some broken, some hollowed out, and at the center stood a figure Ethan had never seen before. Tall, solid, with a faint glow radiating behind it like a dying sun. Its face was hidden, though its outline was unmistakably human. Ethan felt pressure gather behind his ribs, like gravity tilting inside him. Pierce whispered, "What is that?" Daniel's eyes widened. "That is something I have never seen anywhere in all these years." The tall figure raised its hand slowly. The entire void froze. Even the road paused mid-pulse. Then its voice echoed through the mist, through Ethan's skull, through the forest around them. Ethan Ward. Ethan stumbled backward. That voice. He knew it. Not from the road. Not from memories. From somewhere deeper. Pierce grabbed him. "Ethan, who is that?" He could barely speak. "I do not know, but it knows me." The figure lowered its hand, and the archway began to collapse inward, closing like a mouth shut tight. Daniel gasped. "It is closing. That is impossible." The question was answered. It should stay open. Pierce raised her flashlight. "Ethan, what did you just do?" But Ethan did not know. All he knew was the truth. Something inside the road had recognized him, not as prey, not as a chosen guide, but as something else entirely. The mist collapsed completely, exploding into a shockwave that rattled the forest. When the air settled, Ethan stood shaking, breath uneven, eyes wide with fear. The road was no longer merely studying him. It was preparing for him. Whatever waited inside that world beyond the threshold was not done. And Ethan knew this night had changed the rules forever. Ethan could still feel the vibration in his bones minutes after the shock wave faded. The forest no longer moved. The mist had vanished entirely, leaving only a thin ringing in the air, like the echo of a scream held too long. Detective Pierce stood tense, scanning the tree line with her flashlight, as if expecting something to claw its way out of the darkness. Daniel Coster clutched his notebook so tightly the leather bent under his fingers, but Ethan only stared at the empty place where the archway had been. The silhouette of the tall, glowing figure burned in his thoughts like an afterimage. The way the void froze at its gesture, the way it said his name, Pierce stepped in front of him. "Ethan, what happened back there? What did you see?" He tried to speak, but the words stuck in his throat. He swallowed, trembling. It knew me, not the road, not the swarm of memories. Him, the figure in the center. Daniel looked horrified. A central consciousness. I always believed the road was a collection of lost minds, not a single entity. But if there is something ruling it, guiding it. He stopped, could not finish. Pierce crossed her arms. "I don't care if there is a king of the void. If it wants Ethan, it will have to go through all of us." A gust of wind tore through the forest then. Sharp, sudden, violent. It sent leaves swirling in spirals around their feet. Daniel's breath caught. That was not wind, that was the threshold sealing itself. Ethan shivered. The shockwave was not just a reaction, it was a warning. Before Pierce could respond, her radio burst to life with a shrill crackle. Static, then a voice. "Detective Pierce, you need to come back now." It was Officer Hallard from the station. His voice quivered, like he was struggling to breathe. Pierce grabbed the radio. "Hallard, what is going on?" A pause. Then Hallard whispered something that froze Ethan's blood. "He is here." Pierce's face tightened. "Who?" Another pause. Then, the man who disappeared 20 years ago. The one from the old missing person files. The one with no known relatives. The one who was declared legally dead. Daniel paled. "That is impossible." Static surged again. "He is in the lobby. He came in asking for Ethan Ward." Ethan's stomach twisted. Pierce snapped her radio shut. "We are leaving now." The three raced to the vehicles. As Ethan drove, every streetlight flickered violently, as if reacting to his presence. When they arrived at the station, the atmosphere felt wrong. Too still, too cold. The receptionist desk was empty, but a single chair sat in the middle of the lobby, turned to face the entrance. In that chair sat a man, or something trying to be a man. Ethan froze in the doorway. The figure lifted its head slowly. His skin looked stretched too tightly over his bones. His clothing was torn, faded as if aged without ever being worn. His eyes, though, were the worst. They shimmered faintly like the headlights of a distant car. Pierce placed a hand over her gun. "Sir, stay where you are." The man did not move. Instead, he whispered, voice hollow, "Ethan Ward." The voice was familiar and unfamiliar at the same time, as if spoken by someone who had forgotten how to use human vocal cords. Daniel stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" The man's head turned toward Daniel with a slow, grinding motion. "I was Samuel Greaves." Daniel gasped. He disappeared 20 years ago. His car was found empty on Old Briar Road. Pierce frowned. "Samuel Greaves died." Samuel blinked slowly. "No, I was taken, and then I was forgotten. But then suddenly the road remembered me, because it remembered him." He pointed at Ethan. Ethan swallowed. "Why me? Why now?" Samuel rose from the chair with an unnatural stiffness, as though unused muscles were learning movement again. "Because you asked why. The road does not like questions. It consumes them. But you demanded an answer, and something deeper than the road listened." He took a step closer. Pierce drew her weapon. "Stop right there." Samuel obeyed, but his expression did not change. Instead, he spoke calmly, almost peacefully. "You opened a crack in its imagination, and when you did, Something slipped out, something the road tried to bury. A flaw, a memory it could not erase. Me, Daniel whispered. You escaped. Samuel shook his head. No, I was pushed out because it needed to make room. For him, he looked at Ethan again. For you, Ethan felt his throat tighten. What does it want me to do? Samuel blinked again, slower this time. It wants you to finish what I started. It wants you to be the new bridge. Pierce yelled. What does that even mean? Samuel's voice softened. A bridge is someone between worlds, a witness, a guide, a doorway. I could not handle it. My mind broke. The road erased me. But you, Ethan, you are stronger. Daniel shook violently. This is wrong. Humans are not meant to be conduits for places that should not exist. Samuel's head tilted. Maybe that is why it needs you. Because you refuse to forget. You cling to memory even when it hurts. The lights in the station flickered violently. Samuel flinched. It knows I am here. I cannot stay long. He turned toward the door as if preparing to leave. But then he paused. Slowly he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A key, old, rusted, bent. He placed it on the table. This was mine. The road does not keep metal. It rejects what cannot be reshaped. Take it. You will need it when the door opens. Ethan stared at him. What door? Samuel smiled weakly. The one only you can see. A sound rose then, a low, deep hum vibrating through the floor. Samuel's expression twisted with fear. It found me. Pierce stepped forward. What is happening? Samuel looked at Ethan one last time. Run! Then his body collapsed into dust. Not ash, not mist. Dust! As if whatever animated him had been pulled away violently. A violent pulse of static exploded through the building. Glass shattered. Lights burst. Papers flew like birds in chaos. Ethan staggered backward, covering his ears. The static formed a shape above Samuel's dust, a silhouette tall and glowing, like the figure Ethan had seen in the void. It bent its head in Ethan's direction, then vanished. Pierce grabbed Ethan's arm. We are leaving. Now. Daniel scooped the key from the table with shaking hands. Outside the station, the sky shifted a shade darker. The road was awake, and its patience was thinning. Ethan looked at the key in Daniel's hand. Somewhere a door had opened, and this time the road was not waiting for midnight. The night air outside the police station was wrong in a way Ethan could not name. It felt stretched thin like a film, pulled too tight over something enormous, pressing from beneath the surface. The sky had darkened into a shade that did not exist hours earlier. A bruised violet threaded with faint streaks of silver like distant headlights drifting through clouds. Ethan, Pierce, and Daniel hurried to the parking lot, their breath fogging even though the temperature should not have been cold. Pierce grabbed Ethan by the shoulders, forcing him to meet her eyes. Listen to me. No matter what that thing wants, we are not letting it take you. Do you understand? Ethan wished he believed her, but after seeing Samuel collapse into dust, after watching the silhouette form above him like a glowing titan inside a storm, he knew the road had extended its reach far beyond Old Briar Road itself. It was inside the town, inside their memories, inside him. Daniel held the rusted key, trembling. This does not belong to our world anymore. The road rejected it. Yet Samuel passed it to us. That means some part of him broke free, some part the road could not erase. Pierce frowned. If the road does not keep metal, then why did Samuel still have it? Daniel whispered. Because it needed him to deliver it. To Ethan, Ethan looked at the key. Its shape was imperfect, bent as if pulled by impossible forces. But the moment he touched it, his vision blurred. For less than a second, reality split. He saw a door, not a real door. A concept of a door floating in a void of drifting shadows and faintly glowing lines forming an unseen structure. Then the vision snapped away, leaving him breathless. He staggered. Pierce steadied him. What did you see? Ethan forced the words out. A door, the one Samuel mentioned. I think it is waiting for me to find it, or maybe it is waiting for me to open it. Daniel's face drained of color. If that door is what I think it is, then that is not just an exit or an entrance. That is an origin, the first crossing, the beginning of the road's hunger. Before they could speak again, a car alarm blared across the street. A moment later, another joined it, then another. Within seconds, the entire block roared with alarms, all sounding in perfect rhythmic sync like a distorted chorus. Pierce drew her gun. That is not normal. Ethan turned toward the horizon. Old Briar Road glowed. Not bright, but subtly a thin white line pulsing like a heartbeat at the edge of the forest. Mist leaked from the treetops, rising like smoke from a burning world. It wants us to come, Daniel whispered. No, Ethan corrected. It wants me. Pierce clenched her jaw. Then we are going, but we are bringing backup. She reached for her radio. Before she could activate it, static screamed through the speaker so loud she dropped it. The radio sparked, then dissolved into a puff of white dust. They stared. Daniel whispered, "It does not want backup." Pierce looked at Ethan. "You are not going alone." Ethan nodded, but inside he felt something shifting, pulling. The key vibrated faintly in his palm like a living creature waking up after a long sleep. "We need to go now." The three got into Pierce's cruiser and sped through the empty streets. Every house they passed had lights flickering erratically. Every stop sign cast a shadow in the wrong direction. At the final turn before Old Briar Road, Ethan saw a street he had never seen before, branching to the right, a narrow lane lined with dead trees. The sign was blank, no name, no identifier. Pierce did not seem to notice it. Neither did Daniel. Ethan blinked and it was gone. His heartbeat thundered. The road was showing him things meant only for him. They reached the entrance of Old Briar Road. The forest bent inward, creating a tunnel suffocating the last traces of moonlight. Mist seeped from the cracks in the asphalt, forming swirling patterns on the ground. Pierce shut off the engine. Guns ready, stay close. Daniel stepped forward, holding the key out in front of him. "Ethan, take it. You are the one it reacts to." Ethan wrapped his fingers around the cold metal. Instantly, the world changed. Not physically, not visually, but perceptually. A faint outline appeared on the road ahead, like chalk drawing itself onto nothing. A rectangle, a frame, a door. Pierce gasped. "I see nothing." Daniel, do you? Daniel shook his head. Whatever it is, Ethan, only you can see it. Ethan stepped closer. The chalk-like frame grew clearer now, glowing faintly. Inside it, something moved. Slow, heavy, like a presence waiting behind a curtain. The door beckoned. Ethan whispered, "This is the place. This is the door Samuel meant." Pierce stepped beside him. "Ethan, tell me what you are seeing." He opened his mouth to explain, but a sudden burst of static filled his mind, drowning out coherent thought. He clutched his head. Shadows flickered at the edge of his vision. Voices spoke layered atop each other, like multiple recordings played at once. One voice stood out. "Ethan Ward, open it." The road was no longer asking. It was commanding. Ethan fought the urge to obey. "No, not until you show me why." The static roared. Then the world split again. Light fractured into shards, revealing glimpses of another reality superimposed on theirs. Cars drifted upward like lanterns. Roads twisted into spirals. Figures walked along invisible pathways. Faces hollow, glowing faintly. Ethan could hear their footsteps even though none touched the ground. He saw Mason no older, no younger, just as he had last seen him, standing behind the doorframe. His hollow eyes softened. His mouth moved. "Help me!" Ethan reached out a trembling hand. Pierce grabbed his arm. "Ethan, hey, stay with me. There is nothing there." Nothing, but Ethan saw everything. The door began to open. A sliver of blinding white light cut through the air. Daniel stumbled backward, shouting, "Ethan, stop! Do not open it. Not yet. You do not know what is behind there." Ethan's voice trembled. "I think I do." Because behind the door he saw something beyond Mason, beyond the lost travelers. He saw a road without end stretching across infinite darkness. A beginning, a birthplace, the first memory the road ever consumed. The light split wider. Pierce screamed, "Ethan!" Daniel lurched forward, but the door moved faster. Suddenly, a massive shockwave erupted from the doorway, blasting through the forest. Trees bent violently. Dust tore across the road. The cruiser skidded several feet. Ethan remained standing at the center, untouched, eyes glowing faintly, as if illuminated from within. The shockwave faded, leaving the forest eerily silent. Pierce approached him slowly, hand trembling. "Ethan, are you okay? What did you see?" Ethan turned to her. His voice was calm, steady, disturbingly certain. "It is not a road, not originally. It was a person, and now it wants another." The forest did not breathe. The wind did not move. Even the mist that usually curled along the asphalt of Old Briar Road seemed frozen, as if stunned by what Ethan had just said. Daniel stared at him with an expression caught between disbelief and dread. Detective Pierce took a slow step back, studying Ethan. Like she feared something else now lived behind his eyes. "Ethan, you need to repeat that," Pierce whispered. "What did you just see?" Ethan swallowed. His chest tightened, as if someone invisible were pressing a palm directly against his sternum. The image still flickered in his mind, not a memory, but an imprint branded into him by the light behind the impossible door. The road was a person. Daniel released a shaky breath. "That cannot be literal. A metaphor, perhaps." "No," Ethan murmured. "Not a metaphor. A person. A consciousness. A mind so fractured it became a landscape. Something happened to it. Something broke it open. And the pieces became roads, thresholds, voids. The fragments of a person turned into a world hungry for more memories, more identities, more echoes to replace what it lost. Pierce shook her head. Roads don't come from people, Ethan. Whatever you saw is just another illusion, another trick. But Ethan knew it was not. The tall, glowing figure in the doorway had not been a monster or a ghost. It had been shaped like a human. Its voice carried something familiar, not in sound, in intent, a sorrow so deep it felt bottomless. Daniel turned pages in his notebook frantically until he reached a worn sketch of symbols etched into an old map. For decades, the disappearances on Old Briar Road followed a pattern, predictable, contained, but now that pattern is broken. Something new is controlling it, not something Ethan whispered. Someone. Before Pierce could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. A vibration rolled through the forest like distant thunder. Trees shook, shedding leaves that spiraled unnaturally upward instead of falling. The air crackled with static. Ethan felt reality shift again, the same aching pull in his skull he felt when the door opened. Pierce raised her weapon. Everyone back up. Move. But the forest had already closed around them. The shadows of the trees bent inward, forming a circle, pinning them on the road. Mist erupted from the cracks in the asphalt, climbing like white fire. It did not form an archway this time. It formed a shape, a silhouette, tall, human-like, fragile at the edges but solid in the center. The same figure Ethan saw behind the door. Daniel froze. Impossible. It crossed the threshold. The figure stepped forward. Its body glowed faintly like dying coals beneath snow. Where its face should have been was only shifting light. But when it spoke, Ethan felt the voice resonate through his bones. Ethan Ward. Pierce shouted, "Do not respond to it." But the figure continued. "Ethan Ward, remember." The mist pulsed outward. The world split. Ethan saw 1,000 images at once. A child writing on a sidewalk with chalk. A teenager screaming on a bridge beneath a storm. A man lying on cracked pavement staring at a world dissolving into fractured geometry. A name written in dust. A name spoken by no one for decades. The road was not born. It was made. Ethan staggered. The images forced themselves into his mind until his vision blurred. Pierce grabbed him, trying to pull him backward, but the mist held them in place like invisible walls. Daniel shouted, "Tell us what you want." The figure turned its head slowly toward Daniel. When it spoke, its tone changed, echoing with layers of grief. "I want to be remembered." The mist cracked the ground, splintering the asphalt into jagged seams. Pierce fired a warning round into the dirt. "Stop there. Do not come closer." But the figure ignored her. It moved until it stood in inches from Ethan. Pierce tried to step between them, but her foot hit an unseen barrier, and she slammed hard to the ground. Ethan reached for her, but another barrier shot up between them, trapping him alone with the figure. The mist receded around Ethan, and the figure revealing a different world beneath their feet. For a moment, Ethan stood not in the forest, but on a cracked gray plain under an empty sky. Roads twisted overhead, forming spirals and knots. Distorted faces floated in the fog, watching silently. Ethan gasped. He felt cold rush through his veins like liquid metal. His vision blurred around the edges. The figure's voice softened. "You see now, you know my shape." Ethan forced his voice out. "Who were you?" The figure trembled, flickering like light reflected on broken glass. "A name, a simple name. The world forgot it. The world forgot me." Ethan stepped back. "What was your name?" The figure fell silent. Daniel shouted from somewhere beyond the veil. "Ethan, do not ask its name. If you speak it, you give it power. If it gives it to you, it binds you to it." But Pierce struggled to her feet, yelling. He already crossed the boundary. He needs to know what he's dealing with. The figure leaned closer. Ethan felt warmth for the first time since encountering the road. A quiet human warmth buried beneath the monstrous distortion. "My name was..." The sound fractured, swallowed by static. Ethan strained to hear it. The figure tried again. "My name was..." Lightning tore across the sky, and the scene shattered violently, throwing Ethan back into the real forest. He hit the ground hard. Pierce and Daniel rushed to him. The figure flickered violently, its form unraveling, as if someone were tearing pieces away from it. Pierce pulled Ethan to his feet. "What happened? What did it say?" Ethan shook his head. "Nothing. The road stopped it. It would not let the name pass." Daniel's face twisted. "Of course it wouldn't. The name is the key. If a fragment of the original consciousness remembers its name fully, it may become whole again. And wholeness means no more roads, no more thresholds, no more feeding." Pierce blinked. "Feeding?" Daniel swallowed. "The road is starving. It needs memories to fill the cracks left when that person's mind shattered." "Ethan, you are different. You remember everything, even things you should not." Ethan stared at the mist. "Then what does it want from me?" Daniel whispered. "The same thing it wanted from Samuel. It wants you to become its missing piece. To become the memory it lost." Suddenly, the figure snapped back into shape. It reached out its hand toward Ethan. This time, its voice filled the entire forest. "Ethan Ward, help me remember." Ethan's heart pounded so hard his vision pulsed. Pierce raised her gun again, but Daniel grabbed her wrist. "Do not shoot. If you provoke it, the entire town might collapse into the threshold." Ethan stepped toward the figure. Pierce screamed, "Ethan, no." But Ethan lifted the key Samuel had given him. The figure froze. The glow around its body twisted like smoke dragged into a vortex. It recoiled as if the key burned it. Daniel gasped. That key belonged to the fragment. If Ethan holds it, the road cannot touch him. The figure whispered one last time before dissolving into mist. "Find the place where the memory broke." Then it was gone. The forest sagged with relief. The mist dissolved. The barriers fell. Pierce grabbed Ethan tight. "We are ending this. Whatever that thing is, whatever broke it, we are finding it and shutting it down." Daniel nodded. "But to do that, we need to find the origin point. The moment the person who became the road lost their identity." Ethan clutched the key, and deep inside him, something whispered, "You already know where it is." Ridgeway felt different the moment Ethan stepped back into it. Not just darker or colder, but thinner, as though the town were a sketch drawn on paper, and someone had had begun to erase the edges. Streetlights flickered in slow, irregular pulses. Store signs buzzed with half-lit letters. Houses looked stretched along unnatural angles, as if leaning subtly toward Old Briar Road, pulled by an unseen gravity. Ethan, Pierce, and Daniel stood outside the police station. The last of the static had faded, but something worse had taken its place. Silence, a thick, heavy quiet that muffled even the night insects. Pierce checked her gun out of habit, though she had no idea what bullets could do against the thing Ethan described. You said you already know where the origin point is, where the memory broke. So where is it? Ethan stared into the distance. He could feel the key vibrating faintly in his palm, its metal warm now instead of cold. It pulsed in sync with something inside him. It's not on Old Briar Road. Not really, he said quietly. Daniel rubbed his forehead. If not there, then where? Ethan turned south, toward a place he had not thought about in years. A place Ridgway avoided speaking of. Riverbend. Pierce stiffened. That abandoned town. But that place burned down 50 years ago. Ethan nodded, except it didn't burn. Not all of it. I saw it in the vision. Roads spiraling above a gray plain. The first fracture was there. Something happened in Riverbend. Something the world tried to erase. Daniel paled. But if the road was a person, someone who lived there. Ethan finished the sentence. Then Riverbend is where they died, or where their mind broke. Pierce exhaled sharply. Then we go there now, before this thing tears Ridgway apart. They got into the cruiser. The deeper they drove, the stranger the town became. Stop signs were blank, no letters, no shapes, just red circles. Houses blurred at the corners. Cars sat abandoned in driveways, their headlights glowing faintly, even though no one had turned them on. As they passed the old water tower, Pierce's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Anyone else seeing this? She muttered. Daniel nodded. The edges of Ridgway are dissolving. The road is pulling it inward. If we don't find the origin, the entire town will fold into the threshold. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the warmth of the key guide him. He felt a faint pull, a direction, a memory leading them deeper into the dark. The road eventually split off into an unmarked gravel path choked with weeds. Pierce slowed the cruiser. According to history, Riverbend should be a 10-minute drive, but the path stretched endlessly ahead like a tunnel carved through time. Daniel whispered, I remember reading old archives. Riverbend didn't just burn. People vanished first. Everyone. No remains, no explanations, just empty houses, and then the fire. The gravel path thickened into fog. Trees leaned inward, forming a cathedral of branches. The cruiser's headlights flickered. Then the forest parted, and the town appeared. Riverbend, but not the ruins Ethan expected. It looked alive. Homes stood intact. Paint fresh, windows unbroken, street lamps glowed with a warm amber hue. The roads were clean. A gentle wind carried distant music. Children's laughter echoed faintly. Pierce whispered, What the hell? Ah! Daniel trembled. This is not an illusion. This is a memory. Ethan clutched the key. The warmth grew stronger. This is the moment before everything broke. They stepped out of the car. The air felt wrong, too perfect, too still. They walked down the main street, passing people who did not seem to notice them, a woman carrying groceries, a mailman sorting letters, a child skipping rope, but their movements repeated. The child skipped the same 3 hops. The mailman dropped the same envelope. The woman adjusted her scarf every 5 seconds, as if trapped in loops. Pierce raised her flashlight. Can they see us? Ethan shook his head. They're not here. Not really. These are echoes, the last memories this place had before it vanished. Daniel whispered, then somewhere here is where the original person, the one who became the road, lost themselves. Ethan stopped. A faint shape stood across the street. A man, not glowing, not monstrous, just a man. Tall, thin, wearing a gray coat. His face was blurred, as though the memory lacked enough detail to finish him. But he looked directly at Ethan. Ethan's breath caught. Pierce carefully whispered, "Ethan, does he see you?" Ethan nodded. "Yes." The man lifted a hand and pointed to the center of the street. Ethan followed the gesture. There, in the middle of the road, was a single door standing upright, with no building attached to it. Faded blue paint, rusted hinges, the same door Ethan had seen behind the threshold, but now fully real. Daniel gasped. That should not exist here. The man's blurred voice drifted toward them, though his mouth never moved. This is where I ended. Ethan approached the door. Pierce and Daniel flanked him, weapons drawn out of instinct. As they got closer, the air thickened. The colors around them shifted like paint, melting into water. Ethan touched the door handle. A shock burst through him. He stood in a small house. Warm, quiet. He recognized the furniture, though he had never been here before. A man stood in the kitchen, sobbing silently, hands shaking as he stared at a letter on the table. A woman's voice repeated softly in the background, an echo stuck on loop. "I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry." Then another scene. The man on a bridge, rain pouring around him. Cars swerved to avoid him as he screamed words the storm swallowed. His face was clearer now, human, tortured. Another scene. The man lying on a road, Old Briar Road, his breath ragged, his eyes unfocused, his mind fracturing into pieces. Light cracked open inside his skull like a door splitting into reality. Then everything collapsed. Ethan gasped as he fell back into Riverbend. Pierce grabbed him. "Ethan, talk to me." Ethan trembled. He saw everything. The man didn't die. He shattered. His identity broke so violently the world couldn't hold the pieces. The road formed around what was left of him. Daniel whispered, "The road is not hungry for people. It is hungry for memory, for identity, because it lost its own." Ethan nodded weakly. And the worst part, he wasn't alone. Pierce tensed. "What do you mean?" Ethan looked at the town, at the people trapped in loops, at the man staring back at him across the street. This town, Riverbend, was erased with him. Every person, every memory. The road absorbed them. The road is all of them. Daniel exhaled shakily. So to stop it, we would need to give the original fragment its name back, restore its identity. Ethan looked down at the key and at the door. "I think the name is behind that door." Pierce frowned. "And what happens if you open it?" Ethan stared into the memory world that was never supposed to exist. "If I open it, the road either becomes whole again or it collapses everything with it. Riverbend's air thickened like syrup as Ethan stepped closer to the blue door standing impossibly in the center of the street. The world around them flickered warm street lamps shifting to cold emptiness. Intact houses dissolving to charred rubble. Looping townspeople vanishing into thin fog. The town could not decide which version of itself was real because Riverbend was no longer a town at all. It was a memory, and a broken one. Pierce gripped Ethan's arm. Whatever is behind that door, this thing clearly wants you to open it. That alone is enough reason not to. Ethan met her eyes. If I do nothing, Ridgeway becomes the next Riverbend, and after that, whatever comes next, we do not have a choice. Daniel swallowed hard. The key is resonating stronger. There is no doubt. Behind that door is the original fracture. The moment the person who became the road lost themselves. If we can restore the name, maybe all of this ends. But none of them fully believed this would be that simple. The closer they moved toward the door, the more the world distorted. The sky rippled like liquid metal. The asphalt shifted beneath their feet, sometimes smooth and new, other times cracked and scorched. The smell of smoke bled through the air. A siren wailed faintly, then rewound like a tape in reverse. When Ethan reached the door, the key vibrated violently. He could barely control his grip. He touched the handle. A surge of pain shot through him. White hot, overwhelming. The world shattered into a kaleidoscope of images, and his body fell away. He stood inside a house, a real house, not a memory echo, not a loop. This place felt solid, heavy, alive with grief. The lights flickered, the wallpaper peeled, dust drifted in slow spirals, and in the middle of the living room lay a desk with papers scattered across it, letters, maps, sketches of roads, strange diagrams showing pathways splitting like veins. Pierce and Daniel materialized behind him. Gasping, they could feel it too. This, Daniel whispered, eyes wide. This is where he lived. The person who became the road. Ethan approached the desk. The papers appeared decades old. One letter lay unfolded, stained by watermarks. He picked it up. The handwriting trembled but was legible. I cannot live with this anymore. I forget everything now. My mother's voice, my daughter's laugh, even my own name slips away. I am dissolving. I am vanishing. And if I disappear, let the world remember something of me, even if I no longer can. Pierce exhaled sharply. Mental collapse, severe, and no one came to help. Another letter. The road calls to me. I walk it every night. I hear myself in the static. I fear it will swallow me. But I fear more that it will swallow the memories I failed to protect. Daniel wiped his eyes. He was losing himself long before he vanished. Then Ethan found the final paper. Not a letter. A map. Riverbend, Old Briar Road, and beneath them, written faintly, as if the ink itself resisted the world, my name is, but the line was unfinished, torn. Ethan felt the shock before he heard it. A footstep behind them. They turned. The tall, glowing figure stood in the doorway of the house. Its form flickered uncontrollably, as if this place, a memory preserved from its human years, hurt it simply by existing. Pierce drew her weapon. "Stay back." The figure didn't advance. Instead, its voice cracked and layered like shattered glass. "This is where I broke. This is where I lost myself. This room, this memory, is the last piece that still belongs to me." Ethan held up the map. "The name you tried to write it. Why can't you finish it?" The figure trembled. The air vibrated because the world erased it, and without a name. I fractured. I leaked into the roads, into memories, into everything forgotten. Daniel stepped closer. "If you cannot remember your name, why did you bring us here?" Its voice flickered. "Because he can." Ethan felt the weight of those words. Heavy, final. Pierce hissed, "Ethan, you do not owe it anything." The figure turned to her. "Not owe. He is part of the memory." The room tilted. The air folded. Ethan stumbled as images poured into him, memories that were not his, yet felt familiar. A mother humming by a window, a boy writing in chalk on a quiet street, a man holding a child's hand near a river bend, a fire, a scream, a fall, a shattering. Daniel shouted, "Ethan, let go. You cannot absorb that." Ethan dropped the map, clutching his head. The key in his pocket burned like a brand. He felt the missing name pushing through him, like something buried under years of soil slowly forcing itself upward. Then he saw a photograph on the wall that hadn't been there moments before. A family portrait, a mother, a daughter, and a man, the same blurred figure. But the name beneath the photograph had been torn away. Ethan whispered, "Show me, please." The figure appeared beside him, glowing brighter. "You want the name, but the name alone is not enough to remember me. You must remember the world that forgot me." The floor cracked, the house shook. Suddenly, the walls dissolved, and Ethan, Pierce, and Daniel were thrown outside into the street again, except Riverbend was no longer looping. It was burning. Flames ripped through houses. Smoke choked the air. People ran faces clear now, no longer loops screaming, calling names that the world would later forget. Daniel shouted through the smoke. This is the day it happened, the day the town vanished. A wave of static crashed through the air. Figures, real people, collapsed into dust as the threshold swallowed them. Roads twisted, light fractured. Pierce yelled, "We have to get out." Ethan shook his head. "No, we have to find him. The moment he breaks." They ran through the burning memory, searching. Voices screamed. Then Ethan heard it, a man crying out for help. They followed the voice to a bridge. Smoke clawed at the sky. A man knelt on the edge, clutching his head, screaming a name over and over, his voice shattering. "Anna, Anna, Anna." The figure's daughter. Pierce covered her mouth. "Oh God." Daniel whispered, "That moment, that grief, it shattered him. His identity broke. He became the road." Ethan understood. His name wasn't erased. It was buried under grief. The man screamed again, and Ethan felt the truth bloom inside him like a scar finally opening. He knew the name, the real name, the name the road wanted back. Before he spoke it, the burning world trembled. The threshold opened above them like a maw. The figure appeared once more, half broken, half whole. Ethan warned, "Do not speak it yet, not until you understand what giving it back will cost." Ethan stared into its hollow light. "What will it cost?" The figure reached out a shimmering The memories die, Riverbend dies, and you, the world, froze. You become the last witness to a world that never existed. The burning world froze like a paused film reel. Flames held their place mid-air, unmoving. The smoke stopped rising. The screaming voices flattened into a single unbroken tone, faint and distant, as if echoing through a long metal tunnel. Ethan stood at the center of the collapsing memory of Riverbend, heart hammering so loudly he could barely hear Pierce shouting his name. The glowing figure, half fractured, half whole, hovered above the bridge, its form flickering in and out of existence like a failing signal. It watched him without eyes, yet Ethan felt the weight of its gaze. "You know my name." Ethan swallowed hard. He did. The name was engraved into him now, buried behind the grief he had absorbed from the burning town, whispered through the vision of the man crying his daughter's name. But knowing it and speaking it were not the same. Pierce grabbed his shoulders. "Ethan, look at me. Do not say anything rash. Not until we understand what happens next." Her voice felt distant, muffled by the thick static humming in Ethan's skull. Daniel looked equally terrified, holding his notebook like a shield. Daniel shouted, "Ethan, listen to me. If you speak the name, the road might collapse. It might free all the memories it holds, or it might devour everything to keep itself alive. You cannot gamble until we know." But the glowing figure descended slowly. The broken world trembled, responding to its presence. The figure whispered again, "You know my name. Speak it. Restore me." Ethan felt his throat tighten. The name pushed against his mind, desperate to escape, like a trapped bird fluttering violently against a cage. His fingers dug into his palm. Pierce stepped between Ethan and the figure. "You want him to speak it because you want something from him. If he restores you, what happens to Ridgeway? What happens to us?" The figure's aura dimmed slightly. Shadows wrapped around it like strips of cloth pulled by wind. Its voice cracked. "If I am whole, the roads end, the memories return, the world heals." Daniel's eyes widened. "That means Old Briar Road disappears." "Yes," Pierce frowned. "And what about Ethan?" A pause, a long one, too long. When the figure finally spoke, its voice held an ache that shook the air. "He becomes the last memory that remains." Ethan's breath caught. Last memory. The phrase echoed like a death sentence. Daniel whispered, horrified, "If he restores you, he takes your place. The broken identity needs a new anchor, a witness, a heart." Pierce turned to Ethan, gripping his jacket tightly. "Absolutely not. I am not letting you become some kind of sacrifice." But the figure turned its hollow face toward her. "He is already the anchor. The moment he saw the door, the moment he touched the key, he became the vessel of what I lost." The bridge beneath them cracked. The burning world resumed motion for a heartbeat, fire roaring, people screaming before freezing again. Ethan felt a tear slide down his cheek, not from fear, from grief that wasn't his, but had become his anyway. The man's agony from losing his daughter, from losing himself, from falling into the threshold. Ethan felt the burden crush his chest. He whispered, "What if I do nothing?" The memory world groaned. The figure answered, "Then Ridgeway becomes the next river bend, and after that, the world forgets itself piece by piece until only roads remain." Pierce clenched her jaw. That's blackmail. Daniel shook his head. No. It is inevitable. Without an identity, the road must devour others to fill the void. It cannot stop. It does not know how. Ethan wiped his face. He looked at the burning town around him. The laughing children turned to dust. The repeating loops shattered. The echoes of people who no longer existed. Then he looked at the figure. I know your name. The static pulsed violently. The entire memory shivered, as if terrified of what would come next. Pierce grabbed his arm. Ethan, stop, please. He turned to her, voice cracking. If I do nothing, Ridgway dies, you die, Daniel dies, Abigail dies, everyone. I cannot let that happen. Pierce shook her head. Then we find another way. There is no other way. He looked at the figure. Your name is the world splintered. A booming sound ripped across the sky, like thunder tearing open reality. The burning town broke apart into shards of red and gold. The river became a smear of light. The bridge disintegrated into floating ash. The figure shrieked a sound of desperation, not rage. Stop! The voice thundered through Ethan's bones. Not yet. Ethan staggered. The name formed fully in his mind now, sharp and perfect, like he had always known it. Pierce and Daniel shielded him as the world collapsed inward. Then everything went silent. The burning town vanished. The flames blinked out. The air stilled. Ethan found himself standing somewhere new. A long, empty hallway stretched endlessly, carved from white stone that pulsed faintly like living tissue. Doors lined the walls, hundreds of them, each cracked open, each leaking faint whispers, cries, and fragments of forgotten lives. Daniel gasped. This is the core, the heart of the road. At the far end of the corridor stood a single door carved from pitch black wood. Unlike the others, it absorbed the faint light around it. On its surface was a name, the name Ethan had seen buried beneath grief and time, and the name was Whole. Pierce whispered, Ethan, is that what I think it is? Ethan nodded. His voice trembled. It is the original name, the name the world forgot. The glowing figure materialized behind them, less fractured now, more defined as though merely seeing its name had begun to restore it. It pointed to the black door. Speak it, Ethan warned. Restore me. Open the door. Ethan approached slowly. The key in his pocket radiated warmth, a pulsing heartbeat echoing the name engraved into the door. He touched the surface. It was warm, alive. Pierce grabbed his wrist. Ethan, look at me. If you do this, you might not come back. You might vanish into the road the same way he did, Daniel whispered. Or worse, you replace him. Ethan's throat tightened, but he stepped forward anyway. The glowing figure whispered, Say it. Say my name. Ethan inhaled, opened his mouth, and the world held its breath. The moment Ethan inhaled to speak, the name carved into the black door. The entire corridor shuddered. The white stone walls pulsed like they were made of living muscle. The air thickened into a heavy, vibrating hum that pressed against his skull. Pierce tightened her grip on Ethan's wrist until her knuckles whitened. Daniel's breath hitched audibly. Ethan, wait, Pierce whispered. If you say it now, before we understand what this place really is, you might unleash something that cannot be undone. undone, but Ethan felt the name burning inside him, a memory not his own, echoing through his bones. It was as if the person who became the road had lodged part of their fractured identity within him, desperately urging to be spoken aloud. The glowing figure hovered behind them, less broken now, more defined, as though merely bringing Ethan here had begun restoring pieces of what it once was. It repeated softly, "Say it, my name, set me free." The black door before them absorbed all light. The name carved into it glowed faintly, pulsing like a trapped heartbeat. Ethan felt drawn to it, compelled not by force, but by sorrow. A sorrow so profound it felt like drowning in someone else's grief. Pierce stepped in front of him. "Enough! Whatever this thing wants, it is not thinking about you or us. We are pawns in something much older and much bigger." Ethan's voice cracked. "If I say the name, this ends." Daniel shook his head violently. "Or everything ends." Before Ethan could respond, the white stone corridor shifted. The doors on either side slammed open in unison, spilling waves of memories into the hallway. Voices, screams, laughter, prayers, fragments of forgotten lives, all colliding into a single maddening chorus. Ethan clutched his ears, staggering backward. Pierce pulled him into her arms. "Ethan, listen to me. You are not responsible for fixing what broke this thing. You are responsible for surviving it." Daniel shouted over the roar. Ethan, step back. The core reacts to your emotions. The more frantic you become, the more unstable this place gets. But Ethan did not step back. He stepped forward, because the black door, the name, was calling to him. The glowing figure drifted closer, its voice trembling. "I never wanted this. I only wanted to be remembered." Ethan turned toward it. "Then tell me the truth. What happens if I say your name?" The figure flickered like a candle in wind. "If you speak it, I become whole. The roads unravel, the echoes find rest. But you..." Ethan forced the words out. "I become the anchor." "Yes." Pierce stepped forward sharply. "He will not do that. There has to be another way." Daniel opened his notebook with shaking hands. "Ethan, consequences aside, we do not know the full ritual. Giving a name back is powerful, dangerous. It binds you to what you restore." The glowing figure whispered, "He is already bound." The hallway shuddered. Suddenly, a violent crack ripped down the wall behind them. The white stone split open, revealing a massive vein of glowing red light, pulsing like magma beneath skin. The entire structure convulsed, and Ethan felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Pierce shouted, "Earthquake! Move!" But this was not an earthquake. This was the road waking up. Memories burst from the open doors, forming swirling storms of people, faces screaming, bodies dissolving into static, hands reaching from the fog. They spiraled through the hall, colliding and merging like broken reflections stitched together. Daniel stumbled backward. "Ethan, it is not stable. This corridor is not meant for the living." Ethan knew, but he also knew the only way forward was through the truth. The black door pulsed harder, as if sensing his resolve. Its voice whispered to him not from outside, but inside. "Say it." Pierce grabbed his face between her hands, forcing him to look at her. "Ethan, breathe. You do not have to do this. No matter how bad things get, we will find another way." Together, Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Pierce," he whispered, "if I do nothing, the road takes everything." Daniel screamed, "Ethan, behind you." Ethan turned. A new tear had formed in the wall, large, jagged, and something crawled through it. A creature of fused memories. Dozens of faces overlapping in a single twisted mask. Eyes flickering with trapped souls. It dragged itself along the floor, limbs bending in impossible positions, reaching for Ethan. Pierce fired her gun. The bullets ripped through the creature, but it only screamed a chorus of voices before reforming its shape. Daniel shouted, "This corridor is reacting defensively. It sees us as intruders." The creature lunged. Ethan shoved Pierce aside just as the mass of memories crashed into him. He fell onto the floor, cold hands gripping his arms, his throat, his face. He screamed as the creature forced visions into his mind. Birthdays that weren't his, funerals of strangers, car crashes, arguments, last breaths, forgotten promises. Ethan felt himself drowning in lives he had never lived. The glowing figure appeared between them, its aura flaring. "Enough!" Its voice shattered the creature into static dust, which swirled back into the memory doors like frightened insects. Pierce helped Ethan to his feet. Ethan, look at me. Stay with us." Daniel stared at the glowing figure, trembling. "You can control this place." "No," the figure whispered. "This place controls me, and soon, if he does not speak my name, it will tear itself apart." Ethan wiped blood from his lip. His hands shook violently. He turned toward the black door. The name glowed brighter, urging him. Daniel stepped closer. "Ethan, wait. There is something else. Look." He pointed to the edges of the door frame. There were 2 sets of carvings, not one. The first was the name Ethan already knew, but below it, a second name, one carved so faintly it was almost erased. Pierce read it aloud softly. A second name, but why would there be 2? Daniel's voice cracked. Because the person who became the road wasn't alone. Ethan staggered. The memories from Riverbend, the laughter, the bridge, the fire weren't just from the father. They were from the daughter too. Pierce whispered, "Dear God." There were 2 of them. The glowing figure froze. Its entire form flickered violently. No, she cannot be here." The walls convulsed. Another glowing figure slowly emerged from the shadows, smaller, dimmer, but burning with sharp, jagged light. The daughter, the true missing memory. She stared at Ethan and whispered, "Do not say his name. Say mine." The corridor shuddered. The instant the second glowing figure stepped out of the shadows, her light was sharper than the father's, jagged like shards of broken glass, reflecting a dozen memories at once. Her silhouette flickered rapidly between ages, a little girl clutching a toy, a teenager standing on a bridge, a young woman laughing beneath sunlight that no longer existed. She was every version of herself at the same time, struggling against the erasure that had consumed Riverbend. Pierce stumbled backward, raising her gun reflexively, even though she knew it would do nothing here. Daniel froze, notebook slack in his trembling hands. Ethan felt the air thicken, pressing against his lungs like invisible hands. The daughter's voice was soft but clear, each word slicing the silence like a blade. "Do not say his name." Say mine." The father's glowing form pulsed in protest. His voice shook the entire hallway. "No, it is my memory that holds this world together. Without my name, the roads cannot rest." The daughter turned to him. Her voice was steady. "Father, you forgot me." The hallway fell still. Even the hundreds of whispering doors seemed to hold their breath. The father flickered violently, his glow destabilizing. "I did not forget. I could not." "You did." Her tone did not rise. It did not need to. You sank into grief so deep that you let the world erase me. You clung to despair instead of to love. Her words rippled through the white stone, making entire sections of the corridor warp and twist. Ethan's pulse hammered. He stepped forward slowly. "Who are you?" The girl turned to him. Her eyes, two burning lights softened. "My name is the other half of this memory. The part that survived when he broke. The part the road buried, because remembering me would have made him whole again. And the road cannot survive wholeness." Pierce muttered under her breath. "Jesus." Daniel approached cautiously. "If both names belong to the identity that became the road, then restoring either one would shift its balance. Restoring the wrong one could destroy the threshold entirely." The daughter tilted her head. "Destroy or free, sometimes they are the same." The father moved toward her, reaching out a trembling hand. His voice cracked like splitting stone. "I lost you." She took a step back. "No, father." You let go. The floor beneath Ethan's feet vibrated. Bright fissures cracked through the white stone tiles, branching like lightning. The corridor was collapsing under the weight of two conflicting truths. The father turned sharply toward Ethan. His voice was desperate. "Speak my name. Restore me. Bring back what was lost." The daughter stepped closer, holding Ethan's gaze with aching intensity. "If you speak his name, the roads die, but the memories trapped inside them, including me, vanish forever." Ethan's breath stilled. Daniel whispered, "What about if he speaks yours?" The daughter's glow flickered like a candle fighting wind. "Then the road becomes mine. The memories return. Those trapped may be free. The world heals. But the grief that broke him becomes mine to carry." The father recoiled. "No!" "The burden was mine," she whispered. "Suffering does not make you worthy. Loving does." Pierce stepped beside Ethan, voice trembling. "Ethan, you cannot choose until you know everything. Ask her. Ask both of them." Ethan swallowed hard. "If I speak your name, what happens to me?" The girl's answer was soft as falling ash. "You become a witness, not the anchor. The world does not take you, but you will feel what I felt. Forever." Daniel whispered eternal empathy, eternal grief. Ethan turned to the father. "And you, what happens if I speak your name?" The father's form brightened with violent urgency. "You take my place. You hold the broken world together. Everything ends with you." Pierce grabbed Ethan's arm. "You are not doing that. I do not care what the consequences are." Ethan felt his heart clench. Both paths led to loss. Both paths carried risk not only for him, but for the entire world outside this impossible corridor. He turned to the daughter. "Why now? Why reveal yourself only now?" She lifted a hand. The air around her shimmered. "Because you remembered him, and because you saw me." Ethan frowned. "I never saw you." The daughter stepped closer, placing a glowing hand near Ethan's temple but not touching. "Think again." A pulse of white light burst through him, and suddenly he remembered a vision from Riverbend he had overlooked. A little girl playing near the river, skipping stones. A laugh echoing across the water. A voice calling, "Father, come see." He had seen her, but the road had buried the memory. Pierce gasped as Ethan staggered. "Ethan, you okay?" He nodded shakily. "I saw her before everything collapsed." The daughter smiled, sad, small, knowing, "And that is why you can choose." The corridor around them shuddered again, doors rattling violently. Some burst open, spilling more memories into the hall. Echoes of Riverbend's citizens ran through the corridors, screaming, crying, dissolving into static and reforming. The threshold was collapsing. Time was almost gone. Daniel shouted, "Ethan, decide now. If the core collapses, the road spills into the world." Pierce grabbed his face again, tears in her eyes. "Ethan, please choose life. Choose the path where you come home with us." Ethan's voice trembled. "I cannot ignore the truth. She was forgotten, erased. She deserves to be remembered too." The father surged forward, light blazing. "No, the world cannot hold both names." The daughter's voice sharpened. "Then let the world choose." She extended her hand toward Ethan, and the father extended his. Two glowing names appeared in Ethan's mind, one heavy as sorrow, one warm as memory. Pierce whispered, "Ethan." Daniel whispered, "Please." Ethan closed his eyes and spoke, "I choose." The word hung in Ethan's throat, unspoken, trembling, alive. The white stone corridor convulsed, rippling like a living creature bracing for impact. Doors slammed, light fractured. The threshold core bristled with a rising current of pressure that made Ethan's bones vibrate. He opened his mouth. "I choose." The corridor detonated with light. A shockwave hurled Pierce and Daniel backward. The two glowing figures, the father and daughter, exploded into streams of color, spiraling through the hall in a cyclone of grief and memory. Ethan was lifted from the ground, suspended against the roaring storm of voices screaming from every door at once. Then the world went silent. Only Ethan remained standing. Only Ethan and the name. But it wasn't the one he had planned to choose. It wasn't the father's name. And it wasn't the daughter's. It was something else. A third name. A name Ethan had never seen written anywhere. A name none of the memories had spoken. A name that rose inside him like a forgotten truth, finally surfacing from the bottom of a lake. Pierce staggered to her feet. "Ethan, what happened?" "What did you say?" Daniel shouted. "Ethan, answer us. Did you speak the father's name or the daughter's?" Ethan could not answer because he didn't know. The name had spoken itself through him. He whispered, stunned. It wasn't either of them. It was someone else. The corridor reacted violently. Doors buckled. White stone cracked. The black door, the core of the threshold, vibrated like a heartbeat, skipping. The two glowing figures reformed, stabilizing with difficulty. Both stared at Ethan with horror. The father's voice shook. "What did you do?" The daughter whispered, "That name. It does not belong to us." Ethan gripped his chest as heat radiated from a point inside him. just beneath his ribs. It pulsed like a second heart. The father pointed at him, trembling. "That is the name of the one who built the threshold." Ethan froze. He felt ice crawl up his spine. Daniel's voice cracked. "Wait. The threshold wasn't formed by the father. He wasn't the original fragment." The daughter stepped forward, light trembling. Father fell into the road when his identity shattered. But the road was already alive. He only became part of it. Pierce muttered, "Oh God." The father collapsed to his knees, light flickering violently. I thought I was the source, the beginning." The daughter touched his shoulder. "You were only a memory it fed on, not its origin." Ethan felt the heat in his chest intensify. The pulsing glow beneath his skin spread upward, into his throat, into his skull. The daughter's eyes widened. "Ethan, that name, it chose you." Pierce grabbed Ethan's shoulders. "Ethan, look at me. What's happening to you?" His voice trembled. "Someone else is inside me. Someone older, someone stronger." Daniel shouted, "Can you resist it?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't think it's trying to control me. I think it's trying to return." The father suddenly screamed, a deafening, agonized wail that made the corridor quake. "You brought him back." The walls split open. Black cracks spread like veins across the ceiling. Light poured out in violent bursts, and the doors along the hall began slamming open and shut, as if reacting to something massive stirring beneath them. The daughter stepped backward, terrified. "Father, we need to move." The father rose to his feet, light blazing with fury. "No, I will not be erased again. If he returns, then I disappear. My memories die. My daughter dies. The world forgets us again." Pierce whispered, "Ethan, run." But Ethan couldn't. His legs were rooted to the ground by the burning, glowing pulse inside him. The father lunged at him, a burst of blinding light. The daughter screamed, "Father, stop!" She threw herself between them, shielding Ethan. The collision of light blasted all three apart. Ethan hit the wall so hard he tasted blood. The father staggered, flickering wildly, pieces of him breaking off like shattered glass. The daughter collapsed to her knees, glowing weakly, her form dimmed like a candle losing flame. Pierce rushed to Ethan, dragging him away. Daniel ran to the daughter. The corridor roared. The black door split open slightly, just an inch, but enough to release a sound. A voice, deep, resonant, human. "Ethan Ward." Pierce froze. Daniel dropped the notebook. The father fell completely silent, trembling. The daughter whispered, "Oh no." Ethan felt the pulse in his chest synchronize with the voice. Daniel whispered, horrified, "Ethan, that voice is inside you." Ethan nodded. The father stepped backward, terrified. The true architect, the first memory, the one who built the threshold. "He's waking up," Pierce whispered. "Who is he?" Ethan's voice broke. "I don't know," but the answer came. The corridor dimmed. The black door slowly opened wider, revealing a silhouette human, tall, unmistakably real. Its edges glowed faintly, but not like the father or daughter. This was solid, alive, whole. The father collapsed to the floor. "Daughter, don't look." She did, and gasped. Pierce lifted her gun with shaking hands. Daniel grabbed her arm. Pierce, you can't shoot this. You can't shoot whatever that is. Jamha. The voice spoke again, gentle, tired, ancient. You should not have found my name, Ethan Ward. But now that you have, Ethan took a step forward despite Pierce desperately trying to hold him back. Who are you? Why am I carrying your name? The silhouette stepped forward. The corridor bent around him as if reshaping itself to his presence. I am the one who first wanted to be remembered, before the roads, before Riverbend, before the threshold had formed. The daughter whispered, "He is the origin, the true origin." Ethan asked, trembling, "What do you want?" The figure extended a hand toward him. "To return." The father screamed, "No." He lunged again. The daughter tried to hold him back, but their forms tangled in light and static. They crashed into a cluster of memory doors, shattering them and releasing screams that spiraled through the corridor like a tornado. Ethan clutched his chest as the warmth inside him blazed, threatening to tear him open. Pierce held him close. "Ethan, stay with me. Stay awake." Daniel shouted, "The threshold is collapsing. Ethan, you have to choose again. Do you give the name back, or do you let the origin take your body?" The father's voice echoed through the collapsing corridor. "Ethan Ward must choose." The daughter cried, "There is still time. Speak the right name." The origin stepped forward, hand still outstretched. "Come home, Ethan Ward." The father screamed. The daughter screamed, "Wait!" Pierce screamed, "Ethan!" Daniel screamed, "Choose!" And Ethan opened his mouth. The moment Ethan opened his mouth, the entire corridor reacted like a creature anticipating a fatal blow. The white stone walls convulsed, bending inward, as if trying to swallow the sound before it emerged. Light burst from every crack. The air thickened with pressure so violent, Ethan felt his ribs strain, but no word came out. Something seized his voice. Something older than the father, older than the daughter, older than the threshold itself. The origin. Its silhouette stood before him, tall and unmistakably human, casting no shadow despite its brightness. Every pulse of its presence rewrote the air around it, bending the corridor's geometry like soft clay. Pierce clung to Ethan's arm, shaking him. "Ethan, say something, say anything." But Ethan was frozen. His lips parted. Breath escaped. Sound refused to form. The father staggered forward, flickering violently. The daughter stepped in front of him, shielding him from the collapsing corridor. Memory storms spiraled down the hallway, shredding door frames, releasing screams that ricocheted across the walls. Daniel shoved his notebook into his coat and grabbed Pierce's shoulder. If the threshold collapses, everything unravels. Time, memory, even us. The origin extended his hand toward Ethan again, not threatening, inviting. "Come home, Ethan Ward." The father roared, "No!" as he hurled himself toward the origin, light exploding from his form. The impact shook the hallway like a meteor strike. The origin barely flinched. He raised one hand, and the father flew backward, crashing through 3 memory doors. The daughter screamed, "Father!" Static swarmed the air like a hive of angry insects. Ethan felt his knees buckle. The glow beneath his skin thrummed harder, sinking with the origin's presence. He clutched his chest. I can't hold it. Pierce pulled him closer. Ethan, listen to me. You fight this. You hear me? Fight it. Daniel looked at the origin with a pale, horrified expression. This thing isn't a memory or a fragment. He predates the threshold. He might predate every disappearance. The origin lowered his outstretched hand, tilting his head as if studying Ethan. You found my name. Only a living mind can carry it. You are compatible. Let me return. The daughter stepped between them, trembling. No, you abandoned us. You abandoned all of us. Her voice cracked the air like lightning. The origin finally spoke her name, not aloud, but the shape of it rippled through the corridor. She recoiled as if struck. You remember me, she whispered. I remember everything. Daniel whispered. He remembers because he never cared enough to forget. The father rose from the rubble of broken doors, his outline distorted. He limped forward, growling through static. You left me with the weight of forgetting. You built the threshold so you would not remember the guilt. The daughter's glow sharpened into a blade of light. You made us your memory so you could be free. The origin's form flickered not with instability, but annoyance. You misunderstand. Memory is a burden. I shed it. The world shed me. That is how roads are born, from forgetting. Ethan gasped. Everything clicked into place. The threshold isn't built from trauma. It's built from forgetting. Daniel whispered. That means if he returns, everything forgotten comes with him. Riverbend, the lost travelers, the erased towns. Everything forgotten would reappear or collapse into him. Pierce stared into Ethan's eyes. Ethan, if he takes your body, I know. The daughter stepped forward, voice desperate. Ethan, he cannot return. If you give him control, he won't merge with the threshold. He'll erase it in all of us. The father grabbed Ethan's shoulder, his light flickering wildly. Boy, listen. You must speak one of the two names, hers or mine. Anchors hold memory together. His name unravels everything. The corridor cracked again, a massive rupture opening behind the origin like a wound in the world. White stone splintered. Behind it was not light. It was void, endless, starless, hungry. The origin turned toward it, as if admiring his own reflection. I am going home. Ethan felt something tear inside him, like a piece of his soul being pulled toward that void. Pierce screamed, Ethan, stay with me. Daniel pulled her back as the gravitational pull intensified. Objects flew past them, splintered stone, broken memory frames, drifting echoes of people long vanished. The daughter and father combined their fading lights, creating a barrier around Ethan. Their voices overlapped. Speak the name. Stop him. But the origin raised his hand, and the barrier shattered like glass. The father screamed. The daughter fell to her knees. Ethan staggered toward the void, despite Pierce digging her nails into his arm, fighting to hold him back. Ethan, please, she cried. The glow beneath Ethan's skin erupted, turning every vein into a line of light. His vision blurred. His hearing collapsed into a single echoing hum, the sound of his heartbeat merging with the origins. Daniel shouted, do something, say it. Ethan, but all Ethan could hear was the origin whispering through his mind. You are not meant to hold two names. You were meant to hold mine. Ethan collapsed to one knee. His mouth opened. A name rose again, but this time Ethan forced his lips shut with all the strength he had left. He turned toward Pierce and Daniel, eyes burning white. Then he whispered, "Help me." Pierce didn't hesitate. She grabbed Ethan's face with trembling hands. "Ethan, fight it. You're stronger than this thing." Daniel frantically flipped through his notebook. There has to be something, anything, to stop an identity from taking hold. The daughter crawled toward them, light flickering like a dying star. "Ethan, you must choose. You cannot resist forever." The father rose beside her, weak but determined. "Choose, boy." The pull of the void intensified. The Origin stepped back toward the darkness, dragging Ethan with him through invisible threads. Pierce screamed, "No!" and threw herself around Ethan's waist, refusing to let him go. Daniel grabbed Ethan's arm too, shouting, "I won't let you disappear." The daughter placed a glowing hand on Ethan's forehead. "Let your heart decide, not your mind. Speak the name that belongs to your soul." The father placed his hand on Ethan's back. "Remember the one you pity most." The void roared. The Origin whispered one last time, "Come home." And Ethan, surrounded by the only people left fighting for him, finally found his voice. He spoke a name, and the world split open. When Ethan spoke the name, the world did not explode in light or fire. It broke quietly. A single crack rippled through the collapsing corridor, as though reality were a sheet of glass struck by a fingertip. The Origin froze mid-step. The father and daughter froze mid-breath. Even the vortex of the void behind them stilled. Its hungry pull momentarily halted. The name, soft, fragile, human, hung in the air like a trembling heartbeat. Not the father's name, not the daughter's. A third name, a name belonging to someone who no longer existed in any memory except Ethan's. "Anna!" The daughter's glow brightened, an explosion of white radiance bursting from her chest. She collapsed forward, her form stabilizing, sharpening, as though Ethan had poured life back into her. The father staggered, trembling violently, unraveling like dust in moonlight. Daniel gasped. He didn't choose the father or the daughter. He chose the one the road erased most completely. Pierce held Ethan tight. "Ethan, stay with me. Stay awake." The Origin stepped toward Ethan, voice trembling with something resembling fury. "That name is not yours to use." Ethan lifted his head, sweat dripping down his face, veins glowing hot under his skin. "Then why did your world bury it?" The Origin stopped. For the first time, it faltered. Pierce saw it too. "Ethan, keep going. Whatever you did, it scared him." Ethan pushed the word again, louder this time, letting the grief he had absorbed pour through it. "Anna!" The corridor reacted instantly. Doors slammed shut, cracks sealed. The void roared, as if sucking air. The father, glowing faintly, fell to his knees, hands trembling. The daughter rose slowly, her light no longer flickering, her form sharpened into clarity, her face youthful but strong, eyes bright with fierce memory. She whispered, "You remembered me." Ethan nodded weakly. "You were the one he grieved most, the one he buried so deeply that even the road could not find you." The Origin's silhouette wavered. Its voice was no longer calm. She was never meant to be part of the threshold. Daniel stepped forward. That's why everything broke. The threshold wasn't built to hold her memory. It tried to erase her, to stabilize itself. The father shook violently, fragments of light falling off his form like ashes. I didn't know. I didn't know I forgot her. The daughter touched his shoulder, whispering softly. I know. Her glow spread into him, not overpowering, not absorbing, but healing. Pierce whispered, Ethan, I think you just gave her shape again. But giving shape had consequences. The corridor trembled, as if resisting the restoration of a forgotten memory. The void behind them howled. The origin roared, a sound made of breaking stone and twisting metal. You return what I severed. You rebuild what I destroyed. Daniel's eyes widened. He didn't just shed memories. He tore them out. He built the threshold by ripping identities apart and burying the pieces. The daughter raised her hand. Her glow turned razor sharp, as though memory itself had become a blade. You built a world from forgetting, and now you fear being remembered. The origin lifted a hand to silence her, but Ethan stepped between them. Why did you leave them behind? Why did you erase yourself? The origin's silhouette flickered. The void surged angrily behind him. Because memory is pain. Ethan stood firm. Then why did you make the world hold that pain for you? The origin recoiled, as though struck. The void behind him split wider, revealing glimpses of cities disappearing, roads swallowing cars, people dissolving into dust. The threshold pulsed like a dying star. Daniel shouted, if he restores himself completely, everything forgotten floods back into reality. Towns, roads, lives, all at once. The world can't take that. Pierce looked at Ethan. The only way to stop him is to choose the anchor. Make one memory stronger than all the others. The daughter stepped forward, voice steady. Ethan chose me. My name is the anchor now. The father nodded weakly, stabilizing as her glow merged with his. She remembered me. So now I remember her. The origin's outline shuddered. Cracks of darkness split across his form. You cannot anchor her. She is incomplete, Ethan whispered. But she is true. The corridor lit with white fire. The daughter lifted both hands. Light spiraled from her palms, wrapping around Ethan, Daniel, Pierce, and finally the father. The protective sphere formed around them, thin, shimmering, fragile, but enough to hold back the void. The origin exploded forward, rage shaking the hall. You will break the threshold, the daughter shouted, then let it break. And with a piercing cry, she pressed her hand against Ethan's chest. His body jolted, heart igniting with blazing warmth, as though Anna's memory fused into him fully. Her voice whispered in his mind, "Speak it one more time." Ethan inhaled. The corridor collapsed. The void screamed. The origin lunged, and Ethan spoke the name again. Anna. Light tore across reality. White, blinding, final. The void shrank into nothing, folding like wet paper until it disappeared entirely. The corridor shattered into fragments of glass like stone, vanishing into dust. The black door imploded as if pulled into itself. The world twisted and then stopped. Silence. Ethan opened his eyes. He was lying on cracked asphalt, not in the corridor, not in the threshold, but on a real road, Old Briar Road. The night sky hung above him. Pierce knelt beside him, breath ragged. Ethan, Ethan, can you hear me? Daniel stumbled nearby, bruised but alive. I think we made it out. Ethan sat up slowly. The mist was gone. The road was dark, still, empty. He looked toward the tree line. Two figures stood there faint, glowing softly, the father and the daughter. But they were not fractured anymore. They were whole. Anna smiled at him. Thank you. Then both figures faded, drifting upward like sparks carried by wind. Pierce helped Ethan stand. Is it over? Ethan looked at the road, at the silence that felt like a held breath, at the darkness that might be sleeping or waiting. I don't know, because from far down the road, a single headlight flickered. Once, twice, as if something deep beneath the pavement had just woken up. Old Briar Road lay unnervingly still as Ethan stood on trembling legs, supported by Pierce and Daniel. The mist was gone. The forest no longer whispered. The pavement, once pulsing like a living artery, felt cold and dead beneath his feet. For the first time since the nightmare began, Ethan heard silence. Not the oppressive silence of the threshold, but the natural hush of a quiet night. Yet something was wrong. The quiet felt too absolute, too careful, like a stage intentionally cleared before the next act. Pierce looked around, breathing hard. Are we actually back? Daniel rubbed his temples, still dizzy from the collapse of the corridor. The physics here are real again. Gravity feels normal. Time feels normal. We're not inside any memory fragment or threshold pocket. Ethan didn't answer, because far down the road, that faint flickering headlight kept pulsing in and out of existence like a blinking eye, watching them, waiting. Anna and her father were gone, lifted into whatever peace Ethan had granted them, but the road remained, and underneath its stillness, Ethan sensed something shifting, something uncomfortable, something awake. Pierce touched his shoulder gently. Ethan, what did we do? Did we fix it? Ethan stared at the darkness beyond the asphalt. The name he had spoken, Anna, still burned faintly in his chest. Though the glow was fading, the warmth had been replaced by something colder, quieter, like an echo. I don't know, he whispered, but something is still here. Daniel examined the ground. Look at this. The road surface wasn't cracked anymore, but faint lines, like veins or scars, glowed underneath the asphalt, barely visible, like the afterimage of a wound that had not healed fully. Pierce flinched. You said the road was dead. This doesn't look dead. Daniel shook his head. No, this looks dormant. Like whatever controlled it isn't gone, it's recovering. Ethan felt a pressure building behind his eyes, like a whisper trying to form into a word he couldn't fully hear. Daniel continued quietly. Ethan, did you feel anything attached to you when everything collapsed? Ethan swallowed. Yes, but it wasn't Anna. It wasn't the father. It wasn't the daughter. Pierce grabbed his arm. Then who? Before Ethan could answer, the flickering headlight flared brighter. It wasn't a car. It was a shape. Humanoid. Tall, slightly bent, as if walking with unnatural motions. Its form was blurry, almost glitching, like a corrupted video file. Each pulse of the headlight revealed it a little closer, a little clearer. Daniel stepped back. Oh no, no. Pierce unholstered her gun. Identify yourself. Step into the light. The figure didn't respond. It only tilted its head. Ethan felt a sickening jolt in his chest. The same pulse that echoed from the origin inside the corridor. But this was weaker, hollow, like a fragment. Daniel whispered, horrified. Ethan, I know what that is. Ethan already knew. It was a memory that had not been released. A piece of the threshold that refused to die when everything else vanished. The figure stepped forward. Its face flickered. A child's face, then a woman's, then a broken, half-formed mask of the origin. Ethan choked. A fragment. It followed us out. Daniel nodded. When the threshold collapsed, most of the memories merged, faded, or found rest, but not all of them. This fragment was tied to the origin's name, the part of him that wasn't erased. Pierce aimed the gun squarely. One more step and I shoot, but bullets wouldn't help. Ethan already felt it. The fragment wasn't physical. It wasn't alive. It was an echo, unfinished, unanchored, seeking a new home. And because he had carried the name, it wanted him. The fragment distorted with a screech like tearing metal, then lunged. Pierce fired. The bullet passed straight through the creature, bursting into sparks of static. Daniel screamed. Ethan braced for impact, but the fragment didn't hit him. It passed into him, through him. His body locked up. His breath froze. His heartbeat stuttered painfully. Pierce caught him as he fell. Ethan, stay with me. Come on, breathe. Daniel knelt beside him. His eyes, they're glowing. Ethan saw nothing of the real world. He was somewhere else, inside darkness, a small space. A narrow hallway, a single door ajar. He heard breathing not his own, and the soft echo of footsteps pacing back and forth. Someone whispered, "Not again. Please, not again." A figure sat in the corner, hugging its knees. Its face was mostly hidden, but what Ethan could see was wrong-shifting, flickering, as if memories were rearranging themselves in real time. Ethan stepped closer. "Hello." The figure sobbed. "I don't want to forget again. I don't want to be nothing." Ethan realized with a chill what this fragment was. Not the father, not the daughter, not the origin. Another victim, one of thousands erased by the road. A forgotten traveler. Ethan knelt beside them. "I remember you." The figure's shaking stopped. Slowly, it lifted its head. "You remember me?" Ethan nodded. "I don't know your name, but I see you. You're real." The fragment reached for him gently, hesitant, like a terrified child seeking reassurance. "Please, don't let me disappear." Ethan's voice broke. "I won't." The moment he said it, the dark room burst with white light. The fragment's form surged toward him, warm, desperate, clinging to the only anchor it had left. Ethan gasped as he was thrown back into his body. Pierce shouted, "Ethan." Daniel pressed a hand to Ethan's forehead. "He's burning up. Something's inside him." Ethan's eyes snapped open, glowing white, flickering with static. He gasped for air, voice trembling. "I'm not alone." Pierce felt her throat tighten. "Ethan, what does that mean?" He steadied his breath. When the threshold collapsed, the memories sought anchors. Anna and her father found peace, but this one didn't have anyone. Daniel whispered, it latched onto you. Yes, Pierce swallowed. Is it dangerous? Ethan wiped tears from his eyes. Not entirely his own. No, it's scared. It wants to be remembered. Daniel exhaled shakily. Then what do we do? Ethan looked down the length of Old Briar Road. The asphalt pulsed faintly. One headlight flickered again farther this time, moving away. Not a threat, a signal, Ethan whispered. The road isn't dead. It's starting over. Empty, clean, but the memories that escaped with it, they're mine now. Pierce placed her hand on his shoulder. You're not carrying this alone. Daniel nodded. We'll help you find the rest. Set them free. Ethan shook his head. Not all of them want freedom. Some want shape. Some want life. Some want revenge. Pierce's voice hardened. Then we stop them. Together. Ethan stared into the black horizon where the headlight had vanished, and for the first time, he felt something besides fear. Responsibility. The road had chosen him, not as prey, not as anchor, but as witness. He whispered to the darkness, I'm still here, and the darkness whispered back, so are we. The night on Old Briar Road stretched out like a vast, silent sea. No wind, no whispers, no trembling pavement. Only the soft hum of distant insects and the cold, moonlit air hanging heavy above the asphalt. Ethan stood in the middle of the road, staring into the darkness where the lone headlight had vanished. His heartbeat steadied, but the tremor in his hands betrayed the truth. Something inside him was no longer only him. Pierce stayed close, her hand gripping his jacket. Daniel hovered nervously, scanning the tree line as if expecting another fragment to crawl out of the shadows. But nothing moved, nothing reached, nothing growled or pulsed or cracked open. The road was quiet, too quiet. Ethan exhaled slowly. This is the end, isn't it? Pierce shook her head. No, it's just the beginning. Daniel nodded slowly. Threshold worlds don't just vanish without consequences. Some echoes are bound to you now. Some might stabilize, others might not. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. He could feel the presence inside him, not the origin, not the father, not Anna, something else, someone else. A quiet, trembling memory that refused to dissolve. The forgotten traveler. Their voice brushed faintly against his thoughts. Are we safe? Ethan answered silently. For now, he opened his eyes. We need to go home. Pierce and Daniel exchanged a glance, then helped him off the road. They walked toward the car they had abandoned hours or perhaps days earlier. Without the threshold manipulating time, it was impossible to know how long they had actually been gone. When they reached the vehicle, the forest around them felt almost normal, almost but not quite. Daniel checked his watch. Still works. Midnight. Pierce frowned. It was midnight when we arrived. Ethan swallowed. Time froze for us inside the threshold. Everything else stayed still. Daniel started the engine, eyes glued to the rear view mirror. I'll drive. Ethan looks like he's about to pass out. Pierce helped Ethan into the back seat. He leaned his head against the window, watching the trees blur by as they drove away from Old Briar Road. Every mile they put behind them felt like shedding a layer of coldness, a layer of weight, a layer of something ancient and waiting, but the presence inside him didn't fade. It only grew clearer. At the edge of town, street lights flickered. People walked sidewalks. Cars passed. Life looked normal, ordinary, peaceful. Ethan felt disconnected, like he was watching a world he no longer fully belonged to. Pierce noticed his faraway stare. "Ethan, talk to me. What are you feeling?" He hesitated. "Like I'm divided. Like two memories are sharing one mind." Daniel adjusted his glasses. "Will it hurt you?" "No, it's not hostile. It's just scared." Pierce touched his hand gently. "Then we'll help it, and we'll help you." Ethan wanted to believe her, but as they pulled into town, something strange happened. People were standing outside their homes, staring up at the sky. Some pointed, some whispered, some looked terrified. Pierce opened her window. "What's going on?" A man on the sidewalk shouted. "Did you see it? The sky, something moved across it." Daniel blinked. "What moved?" The man shook his head. "Don't know. Looked like a road in the sky." Ethan's stomach dropped. "No way." They drove a few more blocks and then they saw it, stretching faintly across the stars, like a thin, glowing scar, was a long, twisting line, faint but unmistakable. A road-like structure pulsing with slow, quiet light. Pierce whispered, "Dear God." Daniel's voice trembled. The threshold didn't die. It spread. Ethan stared at the glowing streak across the heavens. It wasn't a road. It was a seam holding back something vast, something that still moved beneath the surface of reality. Pierce parked the car, and they all stepped out to stare upward. People around them murmured, filmed on their phones, speculated wildly. No one knew the truth, but Ethan did. Pierce grabbed his arm. "Ethan, what does this mean?" He whispered. "It means the threshold didn't collapse. It retreated. It reorganized. And now it's everywhere." Daniel covered his mouth in horror. "Ethan, are you saying the world now holds pieces of it? That any road, any forgotten place, any empty street could become a doorway?" Ethan finished. A cold wind brushed through the town, sweeping leaves across the pavement. Streetlights flickered softly. The presence inside Ethan stirred. "I don't want to go back." "You won't," Ethan thought. "I won't let you." But he knew the truth. He wasn't just carrying one memory. He was the anchor now, not of the threshold itself, but of its echoes. Pierce stepped in front of him, gripping both his shoulders. "We're in this together. You're not facing this alone, and whatever comes, we'll be there." Daniel nodded firmly. Ethan swallowed. "Okay." But something tugged at him, a pull from down the street. A small, barely visible shimmer on the asphalt. A ripple, a signal. Ethan stepped toward it. Pierce called his name softly, but she didn't stop him. He kneeled, touching the pavement, and the shimmer sharpened. A vision flashed through him. Cars disappearing, people stepping onto roads that swallowed them whole, places shifting like living mazes, not gone, not erased, hidden, waiting. Ethan stood slowly. "The world isn't the same anymore," he whispered. "The threshold isn't gone. It's just looking for new ways to open." Daniel shuddered. "Then we're gonna need rules, detection, a plan." Pierce crossed her arms. "We can build a team, a network. whatever it takes to keep people safe. Ethan nodded. He looked at the sky again, at the faint glowing seam stretching across the stars, and the presence inside him whispered, "Others will come." Ethan whispered back, "I'll be ready." He turned to Pierce and Daniel. "Let's go home. We have work to do." But as they walked back to the car, Ethan felt the road murmur beneath his feet, quiet, distant, almost fawn. A whisper meant only for him. Witness, and for the first time, Ethan didn't flinch. He answered, "I am. The story ends here. Thank you for watching and listening to the whole story. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to listen to the next stories."